Great, thanks. Hello and welcome to the October 6th meeting of the Litchfield School Board. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, they changed the
Um, do we have any revisions or changes to the agenda?
We do not.
Oh, good. Still trying to log in. Let's see. I have a summary of non-public actions from September 15th, 2021. Mrs. McDonald made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of September 1st, 2021. Mrs. Harrison seconded. The motion carried 5-0. Action from September 18th, 2021. School board electronic decision. The superintendent nominated Sam Maloney as the CHS social studies teacher at a salary of $45,388, prorated for the 2021-22 school year. The school board accepted the nomination by a vote of 5-0. And that will bring us to presentations and recognitions. We have a school fundraiser proposal. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to pull this down so I can actually project. I've never done this before, so bear with me.
So let me do a quick intro. So Wendy Langelier is assigned to Campbell High School. And what's your exact title, Wendy? So
Reading specialist,
there you go.
special ed.
See, that's why I had you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
I've gone through several different hat changes, and I wear a couple of other ones. I'm also the advisor for the environmental club. We had 30-some kids there yesterday, and Key Club is also rebounding nicely. And because of my involvement with Key Club and the fact that I'm also a potter and I need to get rid of bowls, one of the things that I had been involved in lately over at South way back in history was empty bowls. And empty bowls is a way of raising funds and informing the public about hunger in our local area. And the way that, well, you guys have this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that you all read it.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be best if I explain more or answer questions?
It might just a
Okay.
real brief overview might be helpful for, especially for those watching from home or
Okay,
if you're in
that's right.
attendance.
I forgot I'm on television. Yes. So what happens is that the ceramics club and our ceramics classes would make bowls.
Mhm.
And I've also said that I will be happy to donate bowls. And then people buy tickets. It's a ticketed event to raise money. And they get to choose a bowl. They get to have some soup. We get donations. The PTO has already said that they'd be willing to make donations of soup and whatever. The FACS class has said, the new FACS teacher, Sue Rafferty, has said that she would be happy to make soup. The director of foods, I'm blanking on her name. I'm terrible that way. Lauren has said that we would have access to, we could have access to the kitchen. We would just have to pay for somebody to be there. So pottery students would make bowls. We'd sell them, I'm thinking $22, $25. People would be able to come in and get a bowl of soup, learn a little bit about hunger and, the needs of the community. And perhaps we might get Tri-M involved to have music. When it was held at South, it got to be 700 people attending. Wow. Yeah, I don't want to do that. We don't have the space for one. And first off, that would be a little bit crazy at this point of the game. But it's been very successful. It is worldwide. So it's not just, something I've thought of.
Yeah, I've heard of this too. Yeah, I've done other organizations that have done this similar
I
thing.
planned one of them at New Horizons. It's fabulous.
So
I think it's a great idea. This is a fundraiser for End 68 Hours of Hunger And so where would the proceeds?
Well, it can be divided up
Mm-hmm.
to wherever we need it. I wasn't aware that we did 68 hours of hunger, and then Elin Pellin asked me about getting Key Club to help out, with food drives and things like that. And I'm like, oh, well, guess what? I'm hoping to get this,
Mhm.
To happen here. So it could be divided there. Funds could be given to the food bank here in Litchfield. Nashua is no longer doing a soup empty bowls. So even the soup kitchen over there, possibly. It would depend, possibly on what you guys would like, where you would like to see it go. 68 hours of hunger is something that is done through the middle school. So it could all go there.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. Do you have anybody have any questions?
You have a date because you put down Friday in March and you said possibly April.
Yeah, because I started looking at the Fridays in March, and there aren't really a whole lot of them that don't already have something happening. So part of it would depend on, getting enough bowls together, because seriously, we're talking maybe 125, because that's about how much the cafeteria would hold. So, Mrs. Berry could get some from this semester and maybe start bowls at the beginning of the semester. So we could go as early as February. It all depends upon what we can get for donations. And April has Easter, and then there's some other faiths that have other holidays that I don't want to go and trump on or make it so that, we can't go because of whatever. So I want to have it available to as many people as possible, and be sensitive to, their holidays and what have you.
Any other questions?
The only thing I would just say is that it would be nice to have a kids option too. $25
Okay.
is kind of a lot, but when we did it at Brookside, there was I think it was a
Like a half price
$5
for
or $10
for
option,
12
and
and
those were
under.
bowls that the kids had designed actually.
Right.
So maybe they weren't as they're more whimsical than the
Right.
professional, the students or the
Well, the plan is to have the students make most of the bowls. I'm kind of like backup. And also, I've got to get them out of my basement. I have also given thought, if heaven forbid that things get worse, that we could try doing like a drive-by or something like that, where they would get, it into go containers with a bowl, and have the graphic design class set up a catalog or a website that, ooh, I like this bowl. Oh, I like that bowl, and have that sort of thing.
I like that.
So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to have as many options that would work. Another place that read that they would sell the bowls just separately to raise funds to cover things.
I think it's good to have options, especially in this day and age when we don't know what we're looking at going into April and March.
Is there any special permitting that we would need, especially if when we did it at Brookside, it was all restaurants that we had gone through. So they had commercial kitchens and they were preparing the stuff commercially, and they were donating them to us in 5-gallon tins. I think you're talking about crock pots, and I just want to make sure that, if there's any
I know that-
permitting or if it's individuals or PTO groups making it, are we covering ourselves in terms of food prep? And I know heating was a big thing, making sure, the Manchester Department of Health would come every year and they would check the temperatures of the soups. And so just a matter of make sure everything is kept at the proper temperature and heating them up properly too, especially those cream soups.
Robin Perringer, who was the one who had organized it over at SAP, has offered to provide, pots also, because she has some still sitting there, but also a list of the restaurants and things like that she had put the touch on to get soups. So I plan on, once this has been approved, meet up with her and get that information from her.
Wendy, did you say that Lauren was going to staff the kitchen also?
She had said that we're welcome to use it, that we would have to pay for one of her staff members in order to be there to supervise.
So there's a possibility
That
yes,
may
that
cover
person
it.
is
That may
used to
cover it,
safety.
but I just wanted to ask
Okay.
because
Yeah.
of, if individuals are making them at home and
Right.
donating them versus commercial kitchens, there may be a difference.
And one of the things I would be asking whoever makes soup, and that includes the commercial ones, give us a allergen list.
Mhm.
I'm celiac, so it's like, oh, that looks so good, but I don't dare eat it, because I don't know what's in it. And hopefully maybe touching base with any local bakeries, because bread and soup go so well together. So it'd be nice to have this as, a nice event.
Mhm.
And that's why I said, maybe try getting involved in
Mhm.
and music, and maybe, I don't know.
I appreciate too the incorporation of the different groups, the different clubs, the different activities, and even the different resources that we have available for people who are hungry in our town. I think this is a really great way to just kind of bring everybody together and focus on one really important need. So I appreciate that. It's different. It allows as many students as possible to get
Mhm.
involved, and I think that's great. I'm going to make a motion to approve the fundraiser proposal for the Empty Bowls fundraiser.
Second it.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? That passes 500.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you. Good luck. Let us know if we can help. I will. Oh,
The
Buy a
PTO
bowl
did
of
say
soup.
that they would.
I will buy a bowl of soup.
Yes.
Thank you.
Christmas shopping at all.
Football games and stuff. They donate chili and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah.
Tacos.
Okay. We have another presentation and or recognition.
We do. So I'd like to invite Kyle Barker. It says an associate, but he looks alone tonight. So but Kyle is the architect that the board has contracted with to work on the new elementary school project. And so we wanted a chance for the board to meet Kyle. And I'm going to actually join this call. Kyle does have an associate who's joining us remotely. And Suzanne is Angarano, right? Suzanne Angarano is joining us from Basin Studios, and she's working very closely with Kyle's team relative to this project. So, Kyle, I'm going to turn it right over to you.
Sure.
To sort of catch everybody up on what we've been doing.
Great. Thanks for having me here because technically I work for the school board, but this is the first time we've actually met. So I'm glad we're finally doing this. My name is Kyle Barker, an architect. I'm the architect of record on this project. I've got Suzanne Angarano with me from Basin Studio. She's an interior designer and space planner and specializes in educational design. There's also a third key member of our team, Calvin On. He's the design architect, and you'll be seeing more of him when we get into the actual design portion of it. So in a minute, I'm going to have Suzanne talk about some key meetings that we've got coming up and sort of our work plan from here through to the bond vote. Some exciting stuff that's happening that I think you'll enjoy. And right now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing and some of the key issues has been coming up. Basically, from since we were hired almost 2 months ago now, right? We've been focused on just data gathering. Learning more about the building, the existing site. This is all important so that we understand what the concerns are, what the problems are, so that when we're asked at a public venue that we understand it fully and we can describe what the needs are. So I firmly believe that when voters have the correct information, they make good decisions. So the biggest issue is to make sure that we understand the issues fully. So lately, what we've been working on is a lot of information on the site. And this past Monday, at the building committee meeting, it was decided for the district to hire a civil engineer and geotechnical engineer. And I think this is really important. Me and my team fully support that. We think that it's the right time to do that. The reason being is that what we discovered with help from Michelle is that there is a mountain of data about this site. There's, I believe, 4 different geotechnical reports, but it's all in different piles of paper. what we'd like to see is the civil engineer and geotechnical engineer to distill that down into a single document that clearly shows visually where the constraints are on the site so that we understand where the best locations to put a building are and where the areas of the site that we need to avoid. We've seen already in some of these reports that there's some sort of surprises that are happening that have kind of flipped on its ear our previous understandings of the site. So at this point, those interpretations of the geological features is something above my pay grade, and we need that specialist on board in order to be able to bring that to something that me and my team can work with. Michael, does that pretty much sum up what we've the latest of what we've been dealing with?
Absolutely. And that's included a combination of on-site work. So we've met at Griffin, we've toured the building, we've walked around outside, walked around the site, and then we've had several virtual meetings where we've continued the dialogue. Michelle's been pulling out of the archives all the old reports, getting those to Kyle and the team. And
Got to get another box to bring home with me. So
So this is about, we're talking about the current GMS site.
we're talking about the property that the school
entire-
district owns. So
Okay.
that includes the current GMS site and really the entire lower portion of the site. It also includes the higher portion up on the plateau where the middle school is. So you sort of have those two elevations to work with. And we really want to understand what's going on here and what's going on up on the hill so that we can better understand how to best proceed.
Is that where the
Why
baseball
can't we
field is?
why can't we just use the latest report? I mean, if we have 4 reports, are they all different years or
Yeah.
are they just different sections of it that just don't cover it all? Like, it just
That's a-
seems to me like, let's use the most recent one.
that's a great question. And yes, and yes, they seem to focus on different things and they seem to cover different portions of the site. So when you put all 4 of them
Not
together,
fully.
not fully,
what you need.
exactly. So there's
Of course.
2 reports on the lower section and there's 2 reports on the upper section.
It seems as if in the past, as all the various versions of a new school came along, we studied this part. What if we did this and it was isolated? And then what if we did this and it was isolated? So that's why this is all kind of segmented off. And so I think
So
the other
hopefully
piece
they can
is-
use bits and pieces from the other reports to.
I'm hoping that so that geology doesn't change, at least within our lifespan, so that even if it was done 15, 20 years ago, the data from the test pits should still be pretty accurate. So I'm hoping that we don't need to spend the time and the money regenerating that work. But if we have the boring logs, then we can have an engineer look at it and say, oh yeah, depth to groundwater is this in this location. And then they can map it out so that we can understand how not just the groundwater, but the soil conditions, the typography. This is all stuff that's influencing how the building gets designed. And when I look at previous designs, they didn't always incorporate all the information that was there. I think there was a sort of a long-standing agreement of what was going to happen, and they forced it to work. And we're trying to come in with a new set of eyes and starting from scratch. And so I think that's going to produce a more accurate picture of where we're at.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And Liz, I think I heard you say, do you mean the baseball
How
field?
far back from the baseball field? So that's the same plane as the middle school? When you say higher
No,
up?
so if you travel back into the Griffin property,
Yep,
you sort of
You
hit
go
the
up a little
Litchfield hill,
yep.
and then you come back down, and the baseball field is back there.
Yeah.
And then into the woods, it begins a sharper
And
incline
that's where
up.
LMS is over here.
But we are looking at the baseball section of that,
Mhm.
just because, again, we own it. It's there.
It's higher.
Or it can be changed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it would be less disruptive to running an elementary school. So there's a lot of things that we're engaged in dialogue about it. But we just don't want to rule anything out on the site other than where the middle school is, because we're not building a second floor. All right.
I think that's important. We're looking at everything, everything. And what we plan on doing is coming up with multiple options for you folks to consider. So we're not just going to come with one option. Here's what we're doing. It's going to be, all right, let's look at a new school where they had put it before. Let's look at additions and renovations. Let's look at a new school on a different part of the property. Maybe even look at a new school somewhere else. Let's look at all the options, do the pros and cons for each, try to come up with some reasonable cost for each. So that way you folks can make the best possible decision because you'll have the best possible information. That's our goal. Any other questions about that piece? I'll have Suzanne talk about what's coming up next.
Is the water table high where GMS is situated right now? I thought that was the assumption, and I thought that's
Me
what I've
too.
heard for so many years.
Yeah.
But then recently I thought somebody said it wasn't high.
The Novus Engineering did a study of the, I think if I get this right, hydrology of the upper portion of the site. And the test wells in that area, basically where they're proposing the new school, shows the groundwater actually 3 feet higher than it is within inside the footprint of the Griffin School. So there were 2 borings inside the building at Griffin,
Okay.
which showed the water table about 5.5 feet down. But those wells show it about 2.5 feet down. And in fact, the plan for the new building was on top of an area of wetlands. So you could say that the groundwater there was 0 feet down.
Aha. Okay, now I understand.
Feels good.
Wow.
So what,
That's very interesting. Yeah.
and what
okay.
we sort of learned is it's for 2 different reasons. And I'll try to simplify this. And hydrologists would probably take exception, but I'll do my best. It feels, or it seems as if the upper area is like a trapped pond. So it's still water that's just underneath the surface. So think of a trapped pond up there by clay soil down underneath. The lower site is actually like a river. It's flowing pretty good underneath there. So just picture that. So that creates 2 different problems to try to work with, right? You got this trapped pond. What are you going to do with that? And up on the hill versus down below, you've got a constant flow of water and pretty rapid water. So it presents 2 different, and this is why we have to take all this and get one comprehensive answer, not
Right.
Well, these guys concluded there's a trapped pond, and these guys concluded there's a river down there. So we have to really know what we're doing. The good news is this: middle school is relatively dry, and it's also on a trapped pond. So with modern building construction techniques, you can work within these environments, but you have to know what you're dealing with.
Right.
That brings us back to the civil engineer.
Exactly.
And I think it's smart to explore every option we can, and with community, I'm guessing this is where you're going with, input from the community at large and get
Yes.
everybody on board with the project.
We've come to this with a blank slate and no preconceived notions of where the building's going. We're trying to absorb the data that we've got. And yeah, I'm sensing that there's been a longstanding belief of where the best place to put the school is. And so my challenging that can be a little frustrating for folks, but I think it's important to go through that because it's bringing out to light things that we weren't considering or folks weren't considering before.
It's like every one of our meetings, Kyle throws us another curveball. It's like, okay, it's seriously, I think the last 4 meetings has been something different. Like, well, we can't do this, but we can do this. Look
Right.
at this, do this. So they're doing a ton of work in the background as far as like, what's the best solution?
Right.
And Brian hits a good point. Brian's attending these meetings.
Yeah.
So, when he reports back, he's a part of the group that's exploring this. We do have Dick Henry, our energy guy, is also participating. Dave Ely, who is our owner rep, is participating. Kyle's team is participating. Corey's there. I'm there. Dan is there. So, we're getting together every week. And like you said, sometimes it's like whiplash. Like, whoa, how'd that just happen? But by the time it gets to the community, we shouldn't be having whiplash anymore. We should really understand each one of these aspects and how to go. So it's an interesting process, but it's going to pay dividends in the long run.
It would have been easier just to accept the longstanding beliefs and just focus on the design of a new school. It's easier to design a new school for me. So taking the time to go through this is not necessarily the easy route, but I think it's the right way to go. So if there's any other questions, I would like to have Suzanne kind of explain what we're going to be doing with the educational specification portion and some public outreach that I think is pretty exciting. It's a more robust process than what you might have seen in the past with your past bond vote proposals. So Suzanne, are you with us?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Can everybody hear me? Great. So hi again, I'm Suzanne. I'm going to be working very closely with Kyle through this process. And I'm going to share my screen and kind of walk you through a little bit of a work plan that we're it's a living document, so it's continuously updating, but where we stand now. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, can you see my screen?
We can. And if you could just expand it so it's a little bit small in the window. So right there is about as close as we're going to get to being perfect. So thank you.
Okay, great. So I wanted to kind of start out by identifying at the top here, there are 3 colored lines. And these are the 3 components that make up this study and the investigation that we're going through. So what Kyle just kind of laid out kind of fits under some of this feasibility study and as well as some of this planning aspects. But in addition to that, we're looking at the existing GMS school and what are the opportunities there. We're also investigating the educational aspirations of the district and the educators. And we're also going to be doing a lot of public outreach, which I like to call community engagement because it's really bringing the community into the conversation. And then the other aspect, obviously, is the planning and pre-design. So kind of mixing all of these together creates the puzzle for the study. So those colors correspond to these boxes on the side. So as you'll see here, some of the boxes then are also highlighted in yellow, and that's where we're meeting with various district groups to kind of have meetings, diving deeper into various topics. And then later on, you'll see some red boxes, and those are the community outreach pieces. So far, we've kind of gone through some of the existing assessments. Kyle's talked about some of those. In terms of educational program understanding, we're collecting data currently from all of the staff at GMS and educators to understand their intent for educational programming and their thoughts for the future. So that's in progress. And then we're also, as part of this, we're looking at energy and other aspects of sustainability. So far we've had an initial meeting to look at what are some of the goals for the reimagined GMS in terms of energy, high performance, operations, maintenance, and a myriad of other aspects. This week we'll also be meeting with the principals of the the middle school and the elementary school and some other educational program folks to kind of understand what's in the planning for curriculums and other educational delivery aspects. And all of those things are kind of starting to filter into what we'll eventually be doing to create what is the program, what are the space needs and program aspects for the reimagined GMS. So to kind of round off that effort, you'll see we're going to be looking at we'd slated originally end of October, but we'd like to test the idea of conducting a community dialogue session number 1 on November 2nd. And that will be to listen to the community in terms of what they see as the needs are for the facility, the needs for the students, the needs for the communities, as well as to kind of give an overview of the project, where it stands now and where we're going, and to really just listen in terms of those needs. And so I can pause there to see, I don't know, Mike, if you'd like to address the November 2nd aspect now or at the end of me kind of going through this?
No, let's address that right now, Suzanne, just so we have a sense. So we've picked November 2nd, but we don't know if that's, some big night in town or whatever. So we want to make sure that we picked a decent night.
We're going to be busy during the day, but
I've explained that there are a few of us who are tied up with an all-day meeting. But
So this would
an
be likely an
evening
evening
meeting
event?
is something we could do. And I've asked Rob if it's something that we can coordinate with Litchfield TV.
That would be great.
And he said he thinks we can.
Okay.
Worst case is it gets recorded and broadcast later. So at least it's available to folks, but we might be able to live stream it. And I'd be curious to know, I know we start our meetings at 5:00, but if you were doing an event where you wanted the community to come out, what would be the right starting time? Would it be 6:30, 7:00? What?
6 or 7.
6:30.
I would say 6:30. I know a lot of the school events that we have in the evening start at 6:30, like the open houses and those kinds of things. Parent night.
Is it going to be in the auditorium?
It would be, well, we think it's important to hold this at Griffin. If you're going to be talking about the school, that you ought to hold it in the school that you're talking about. And so we're looking at the gymnasium. There's a stage. We do our best in there, but I know we're all thinking that's not the best environment, but that
There are no
helps-
padded seats.
That helps illustrate the point. Yeah, so
Bring
we'll
your
put them on
own.
a-
Bring a camp chair.
No illustrated point, for sure.
Um,
And just to be clear, what the purpose of this first meeting is just to listen to the community. So we're not presenting any designs.
Yeah.
We want to get the community's input first, so that way when we do come up with a design, it fits well with what they're looking for. People, when they see something and they notice an element that we've used that they asked for, they feel like they've been heard. And so we want to make sure that we do that. We want to listen and incorporate everything that we can.
And if you think back, like what the fire department did, they presented
Mm-hmm.
a building first with a price tag, then
I remember.
Then listened.
listened.
Mhm.
And then
went
it got
back-
ugly.
Then went back and
And then we went back.
right. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to go to the public first. And
Oh,
get their
absolutely.
input as far as ideas or what their
We've
thought
heard
process is.
all sides of it. Renovate what we have, build a new school, add on to the middles. We've heard all of it. I'd be interested in all feedback. I agree. I think it's a great idea.
So November 2nd, 6:30, we'll just have to be done so that we can attend, right?
It's also
Week is
voting
that?
day too. I mean,
But is there an
I
election
don't
in
know
Litchfield?
what election there is.
Our gut was that,
Isn't it the governor's race?
no,
I don't
there
know.
are no state elections and there are no federal elections. This is sort of as an odd year in between
Yeah.
election.
Midterm.
And I don't think there are any town elections. I think that all waits until March. So I think we're okay.
Well, our
Yeah.
meeting's supposed to end at 10 minutes of 4. Supposedly we end at 10 minutes of 4 on the second, the other
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
Great. I think that makes the most sense, and I appreciate getting started, as soon as we can.
All right. So let's lock that date down and we'll start to prepare
Great.
communication about it then.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to get us there, there's some preparation that will happen. To help us with that, the district has engaged with Charlie Needling, and he's kind of doing the marketing and sort of public relations outreach aspects to get us to those meetings. And then he and I will be collaborating to make sure that the content is developed in a way that is approachable and is clear, so that we're getting the ideas out there as well as getting the input received, documented well, so that we can respond accordingly. So kind of backing up a little bit then to kind of get us there, this month we'll also be kind of meeting, continuously meeting regarding the educational program aspects, as well as continuously developing the energy and sustainability aspects of the project. So we have some of those meetings scheduled for middle of October. We also are planning on doing a couple of other engagements with the educators and also students. And so because, now that we're looking at the November 2nd for the community session, we're looking at November 3rd for some of the meetings with the educators, as well as one with students, to kind of get their input as well. We've done this with other students before. We have a book that's called If I Built a School, and kind of reading that story and getting them to share and draw what they think they would build if they were building a school. And then, so that kind of gets us to that first part of what's all this information, what's important to the community, what's needed from an educational and facility perspective, and starting to kind of distill that down into what is the program, what do we need for the Reimagine GMS. And so we start developing the program, the educational goals, site concepts, design options, and really exploring the full spectrum of options and looking at, what's possible, what's not possible. Once we've reviewed those with the project team, then we'll be then relaying that back out to the community. So there'll be another community dialogue session number 2. We're thinking early December, and this would be where we kind of look at the options that are developed, pros and cons of each. Maybe if there's a leaning on which one seems like it, which one or two might seem like the best and why, we can kind of share that. But gather information on how are people reacting to this. Are there things maybe that we didn't think of that we need to consider as we refine those options, maybe narrow them down. So then by around middle of December, we'll likely have a pretty firm direction. Maybe we're looking at 2 options that we're considering in terms of budgeting, but really looking to kind of narrow that focus. And then we'd be coming back out to the community second week in January approximately to kind of present the ultimate design direction that's been kind of set forth as we believe this is the way to go, and with all of the information regarding site, program, cost, and expectations of how to move forward. And that will then inform what will be included in the warrant article vote for March. So if I've missed anything, Kyle or Mike, if you'd like to chime in.
Well, considering how tough it is to schedule some of these public meetings, do we want to consider actually targeting a few dates in December now for that second one? And to be clear, so that's when we've taken all that input from the first one and we show the public how we've incorporated some of those ideas. I think it's going to be a really important meeting.
Do we want to say the first Tuesday, December?
We certainly could.
Just
Let's
to
take a
keep it
peek here.
consistent.
Yep.
Did she say a warrant article in March?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going to ask
so-
about that too.
Yeah.
Kyle, can you explain? So this is not a
Sure.
bond
Okay.
warrant article.
Sure.
However, we're going to need ongoing commitment from the community.
So from what I understand, the last 2 years, there's been some funds appropriated for fees for architects. And there's been some expectation of what that's going to get. And what the current proposal that we have with you folks is to bring you through until this January with concepts, but that doesn't get actual designs completed. So we had floated the idea with a committee of going to town meeting with a vote for more design fees in order to develop the project to a point where it could be permitted. Obviously, we've got some wet areas on the site. If we're on the site, we're going to need wetlands permits. We're going to need state DES permits, specifically alteration of terrain. There's a number of these. Those permits take 4 to 6 months to get into hand. And so if we wait until the bond vote to start working on those things, you're starting construction in like December. So what we wanted to do is to get those fees ahead of the bond vote. And the other thing about that then is those fees aren't insignificant. It's a fair amount of money. The design fees for a new school this size is a significant amount of money. I won't kid you on that. So we don't need the full amount, but we need enough to get those permits together. We need enough of the architectural to get decent construction manager guaranteed prices, so that when we go to bond vote, we know the exact costs and it's shovel ready for construction. So if we go to March 2022 with a warrant article for those fees, there's significant fees. It does become a paramount to a success for the bond vote, because the district isn't going to spend, say, $500,000 in design fees and then not seriously consider the bond vote. So it does sort of raise the urgency level on that piece of it, and that's why we're trying to do as much due diligence now as possible to make sure that whatever we present is a good design. But also you have to think about it in terms of if the district has already, the voters have committed to this process. If they commit a little bit more next year, it helps to sort of even out the tax increases. It helps to, again, bring sort of the sense of urgency of passing this project And I think overall would help the project if that warrant article were presented. And in the end, hopefully make for a better project because we'd be able to start earlier and all those type of things. So that's what that piece is. And I know that you folks hadn't heard it before, but we've been talking about it in the committee on how that would work. And this isn't the only district that's done it that way before. When we went to tour Oyster River, they did something very similar. In fact, I think they even worked harder to kind of level out the tax impact over a number of years. So this is a strategy that's been employed in the past with other districts as well.
And I've seen this done with a previous district renovation project, so that when it passed at the March vote, we were breaking ground by the end of March because everything was lined up, right? So when Kyle made the comment, if you wait until March of 23 to pass the bond vote, you're not even breaking ground till December. So you've lost, quote, all that time, if you would, just getting permits and so on. So then the likelihood that school is going to be open by the following September, probably not going to happen. So then you're into, to me, a worst case scenario is a mid-year transition. It's like finish school Friday here and start school Monday there. I mean, that's a challenge, right? Versus if we can really get this lined up in advance, and it aligns with what the board's been doing. You've twice asked the voters to weigh in by putting money aside to hire Kyle and to get a team going on this. We twice asked, and the voters twice have said, we need a school. We're going to support that. We're going to up the ante because it's going to be more than the money that we asked for last time because it'll be a little bit more expensive. But it's a third way in for the community to say, this is a priority for us. So,
well, the other issue to consider is inflation. We talked about this at the committee that inflation over the past 10 years has been about 3% a year, but this last year was more like 7% because of the pandemic. Now we're hoping it's not as bad next year, but it's not going to go all the way back down to 3%. It's still going to be high. So the longer that we take to develop this project, the more expensive it's going to be. If we wait until 2023 to even start the design, you've lost 7% of the project cost just through inflation.
excellent. Not excellent on that point, but
Yeah,
excellent.
that's not excellent. But it's a good thought.
One thing I neglected to bring up during the work plan walkthrough was that there's also, what's not represented on here, there's also regular meetings where it's sort of a project committee. And so there was, we were talking with Charlie Niebling today regarding potential community involvement in those meetings and seeing if there are representatives from the community that would be a good fit for that. So I'll kind of pass that along. But I think we were going to maybe try to get a list of candidates for that meeting.
So what I have, Charlie has sent me a list of questions, right? Some of these Corey and I will answer, so you don't have to worry too much
Who
about.
sent that to you?
Charlie Niebling, who is
Okay.
our communications person, and on the project, right? So if you just take a look at these, I think the key one is about midway down, and it asks about important and influential people in the community. So if we're going to involve more stakeholders in the conversation, we want to make sure we reach out to people who are important and influential. Who is it that comes to meetings and wants to be heard and wants to have input and so forth, just so that we know that we're engaging them in this project. Okay, so I'll pass the paper out. There's one for each of you. You feel free to answer any of the questions on here you want, but if you don't want to answer some, Corey and I will take care of those later.
But the names we're looking for is for join the facilities improvement
Committee.
Committees to
Okay.
expand.
a couple of members just
expand that
for
group.
a short period of time.
Kyle, how long does it take to build a new school? A year and a half?
Yes, at least.
And a renovation? A year?
No, probably about the same time frame. The
Okay.
reason being is it becomes a bit of a shell game. You've got to build a little bit, move kids into
Right.
it, renovate, move kids into that,
Yeah,
renovate,
Wyndham went
move
through
kids into
that, I
that.
think. Yeah.
So it takes extra time.
Okay, just curious.
Just circling back on that December 7th date, I would recommend or suggest that we check with the GMS PTO. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of parents who want to attend that. And I know they do a couple of different holiday events in the month of December, as well as holiday concerts, and it's just a very
It
busy
fills up
month.
fast.
Yeah.
So I would just triple check dates with them and
Yep.
triple check with the school, because I think, assuming concerts are going to be happening with COVID, that's an assumption, but we may want to make sure that those parents can be there.
So Suzanne,
Wanted to bring it up and make sure we get
Yeah.
that locked in.
we'll tentatively hold December 7th, which is a Tuesday, but let's verify with Dan that
Yeah.
that's going to be a good night.
I think that's pretty much it from our side. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be back. So, and don't hesitate to call if there's something you need. Again, you've got my cell phone number. It's all on the documents. I'm available whenever you need me.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you,
you.
Kyle. Appreciate it.
you.
Thanks for coming
Thank you.
out.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Suzanne, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Have a great night.
You too.
Kyle, did we find that report that you were looking for?
Have we found it?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know if Michelle had found it or not, or.
We're working.
I'm gonna dedicate part of my day tomorrow to work on that.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, that brings us to community input. I have a reminder that it's 3 minutes per person. Folks can provide their input through Google Meet. The link is meet.google.com/HAR-JANA-HNK, or by phone. The phone number is 1-662-565-5146. And the PIN to enter the meeting is 911-992-355#. It's the same link in the same phone number that it is for all of our meetings. Do we have anybody in attendance that would like to provide input?
More than welcome.
No one here?
Would you guys like to introduce yourself, Emily and Emma? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I don't want to steal your thunder. Sorry.
Trying to log in.
I didn't know if they were blending into the. Oh, look at how red they are.
You totally just embarrassed them.
They know me,
They're used to being embarrassed.
pretty much.
So we're just waiting for Dr. Jetty to enter into the Google Meet for community input. While you're doing that, Brian, do you want to go into correspondence?
Look at the face. Really?
Is he doing that first? Or you want me to do this?
It's taking me a second.
Yeah,
I
it's just
apologize.
to fill the
Sure.
dead airspace.
I'll start with correspondence. So our first correspondence came in 9/16 from Susan Haley. Questions on grading, inquiring as to whether or not we are doing away with letter grades and going for number grades, and inquiring when the first meeting is of the grading committee. 9/16, there was a response from Mary Widman to Susan. And then Susan said she never saw any written communication regarding this to parents, and then she was looking for more information. So then 9/16, after Mary responded to her and sent her a whole bunch of links, Susan responded back thanking Mary Widman for the info on grading, and that she supplied a presentation on grading that was presented to the board on 10/10/2018. First presentation was on 8/12/19 and 3/20 to the board and 6/14/21, giving the current status. So all that information was sent to Susan as far as grading. So she has all that information and she said it was helpful. On 9/17, I think it was through probably those correspondence with Susan that Mary Widman put out there that on the district website, underneath the curriculum instruction and assessment tab, presentations were under there for grading. And under that tab, parents can find anything and everything connected to curriculum and grading. On 9/19, Catherine Seaver sent an email. She does not agree with the criteria we're using to determine masking and concerned our guidelines are not strict enough. On 9/21, Kathy Dyer inquired as whether or not we would entertain longevity pay for subs. On 9/22, Nancy Roth. I think this one was responding to, well, she sent a message to Dr. Jetty offering that individual who was not certified to teach but taught Spanish in Hudson last year. And Dr. Jetty explained to her that things are different at the DOE at this time. and they frown upon non-certified people teaching. And he gave an example. It's no different than someone who can speak English can't necessarily teach English. Then there was a response from Dr. Jetty to Kate Seaver that we believe that our current matrix provides the correct balance between best educational practices and protecting and preventing, and we will continue to monitor our matrix. On 9/21, Tina Harrison sent an email to Mike Breton appreciating his involvement in the attention to the matters affecting our students. And the Dr. Jetty had responded to all his masking concerns, and after discussion with the board, this will be our last correspondent on that matter. On 9/21, Tina Harrison sent a email to Brendan Lefebvre, again, appreciating his involvement with matters affecting the students. And Dr. Jetty, again, had responded to all his concerns and answered all his questions as much as possible. And again, after discussion with the board, that this will be our last correspondent on that matter to him. On 9/21, Mike Breton feels his questions on masking have not been answered and asking what is the district's stance on students who do not wear a mask and what level of, what am I looking for?
Consequence?
What is it?
Discipline,
Consequences.
consequence.
Yeah. Whether or not it'd be like a level 1, a level 2. And I know we discussed with the board, it's no different than a dress code violation that we will ask them to adhere to the policy. And if they don't, then they have a choice to either go home or put a mask on if it's required at that time. And on 9/23, Margaret Cavalier sent an email with concerns that we had moved a Spanish teacher from the middle school to the high school. And I think Dr. Jetty had that conversation with her. She had quite a few points. And I'm certain it was explained to her that the need was much stronger at the high school to have a Spanish teacher who could teach Spanish 1, 2, 3 than it is at the middle school just for Spanish 1. And that was it.
Thank you.
Did I miss any?
I thought we got one today. Maybe I just got it.
Well, if we got it after like 2 o'clock, whatever, I wasn't around.
I haven't seen anything, but I haven't checked recently either.
That'll be the first one for next week.
Thank you.
Yep.
And is anyone in the community input?
There's nobody in community.
All right. That concludes our community input, unless anybody else had second thoughts about speaking. No? Okay. So we'll close public input at this time. And if there are further comments, they can be brought up at our second public input later in the meeting. And that will bring us to Superintendent Comments.
So I'm going to start by talking about the Spanish position. So if, a lot's happened since our last meeting. So we have relocated the Spanish teacher from the middle school up to the high school. Excuse me. That did cause some stress. Anytime that you close a program out, relocate a teacher, it was done with some efficiency, I guess. So it happened pretty quickly. But unfortunately, we're just in an impossible situation. We have been searching for a Spanish teacher since April, had hired people who then decided not to come. It had really been quite a frustrating process for the high school. So ultimately, we had to deploy the existing staff in the best way that we could, and that seemed to be the best decision. So I do apologize to all the middle school families who sort of had that program ended on them. That was, frankly, not a nice thing to do, but it was out of necessity. And I just hope that people do understand that we had exhausted every other possibility. But ultimately, when you are building high school transcripts to go on to college, and colleges are looking for 3 years of a world language, and the only world language we offer is Spanish, we really had to make a decision that was in the best overall interest of the students. And so that was putting Anna Helbling at the high school for the remainder of the year. We will be engaging in deeper dialogue about exactly what we're doing with our Spanish program. Remember, our principal at the middle school started last Friday, so she's got 4 days under her belt. But on the radar will be what do we envision and imagine for the world language program at the middle school. So So we'll stay after that work and do our best, hopefully earlier in the season to do the hiring. Hiring in February or March is a lot easier than hiring in August. And so that would be our goal going forward once we know exactly where that's going to stand.
What is happening to the students who were enrolled in Spanish and Spanish 1 at
Yep.
the middle school?
And so, it's been as disruptive as it was to the high school students who didn't have a teacher for the first 3 weeks.
Right.
It's been equally disruptive for the last 3 weeks at the middle school. The good news is I have a candidate coming to you tonight. And that is a candidate who is, we're hoping will be the right person to offer a PE and health curriculum. And so that will be our recommendation, that we hire that person, we get them on board, tomorrow or next Tuesday. We want to go as quickly as we can because this has been disruptive and we want to go as fast as possible. So, time is a little bit on our side because we have the teacher workshop day on Friday, the holiday on Monday. I think we can have this person ready to roll by Tuesday if the board is amenable in non-public to the candidate that I bring forward. So parents understand that we're working on a solution and we hope to have something to announce pretty quickly here. And then the idea, so I think there's two things we want to be clear about. One is that families have been encouraged, if they want to pursue Spanish through VLAX or some other accredited option, to do that. And the middle school, I think, is being as creative as they can, trying to figure out how to accommodate within, or some families are pursuing this outside of school. But VLAX is an option. Remember, we're not in control of VLAX, and VLAX is absolutely swamped right now. I think they're probably starting to catch a break and come up for air, but they've been pretty darn backlogged. And so, the good news is, in talking with some folks, that even last year when they were pretty darn backlogged because of the pandemic, they were late starting, but students were able to finish the courses mid-spring.
Mm-hmm.
So, even if somebody starts taking Spanish 1 the end of October, let's just throw a date out there, but can finish that by the mid-May, they still have Spanish 1 under their belt because it is a self-paced program and they're able to keep on track of it. So it's not a complete loss of Spanish. That's an option for some kids. VLAX doesn't work for everybody, but it works for some kids. Health and PE will be an option. That seemed to be the largest concern among 8th grade parents, was the lack of health and PE. So that's the need that we're trying to meet based on the feedback that we heard from families. So I think somewhere along the line, between this offering coming on board, health and PE, VLAX providing an eventual solution, I think in the end, we're going to be okay. The end of the year is going to come and students will be okay.
When would that course need to be completed to have the credit for Spanish 1 to go into Spanish 2 for next year? Would that be could they complete it over the summer and have that under their belts?
Absolutely,
Okay.
because historically, if there was a student who struggled, even in our middle school,
Right.
who needed some time over the summer, we would schedule them for Spanish 2, but they would have to have completed Spanish 1 by the time it starts. And that's why we do have a drop add period at the start of the year. We prefer not to use it. We'd like everybody's schedule to be done and perfect. My perfect type A personality is everybody has a perfect schedule on August 25th, but that's not reality. There are a lot of kids who are making adjustments because of summer pieces.
No pressure, though. All right, thank you.
And any other questions on the Spanish scenario? I just remind the board and the public that with our curriculum director being a certified Spanish teacher, we're in pretty good hands at examining our programming. I think, Mary understands the best way to proceed. And quite frankly, waiting till 8th grade is too late. All the research says start the second language much earlier. And
We just worry about middle school before we go into elementary school.
but 8th grade is too late.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to say
Fifth
that,
grade, yeah.
Based on the research, 8th grade is too late.
But then what happens in the high school? They're gonna have Spanish 15, Spanish 10.
Wouldn't that be a great problem?
It would be a great problem. So then it wouldn't count, would it?
Encourage more
I don't,
exchange.
it's a whole different,
What you do is you sort of reset around what the parameters are of those. And frankly, if you spend more time verbally younger,
right.
it'll pay dividends. I mean, kids don't start writing essays at the age of 4, right? They're talking, they're mastering the verbal control of the language. And then the writing comes later. We don't do that. in the
No,
way we teach
you're
a second
right.
language. And so, just keep all that. And when I say programmatically, I mean really examining what's best practice in order to master the language. You have to speak it, hear it, understand it verbally before you get to the writing part.
Oh, I see that.
Otherwise, all you're ever doing is
Oh.
translating.
Mm. Mhm.
Mary's got us in good hands on it.
Thank you.
Second thing are the October 1st enrollments. So I'll just post those up on the screen so the folks at home can follow along. So you want to read this from right to left. So the October 1st numbers are in this column.
Could you put that so a 50-year-old could read it across the room?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. That's for Bill.
All right.
Brought your laptop, you'd be able to read it.
I don't have my laptop.
So we'll talk about Griffin for a second. On August 30th, on opening day, we counted noses, and there were 458 students. By September 5th, the first Friday, that number had dropped to 453, and then it settled out by October 1st at 454. So that is our number. I would ask you to pay attention to things like the fourth grade number 96 held, the third grade number 84 held. It's
We picked up a first grader.
we've gotten pretty good at having those numbers and
Yeah.
be reliable with what we're predicting.
Good.
The next thing are the middle school. We were predicting 352. I think we settled out at 355. So again, we're pretty close to what our prediction was. You'll notice that all four classes are now under 100 there, which is consistent with what we've been seeing at Griffin, and not much change between opening day and October 1st. And then at the high school is now the recipient of the first sub 100 class, right? So the ninth grade class has settled in at 96. They've gained a couple as the year has gone on. And then the other three classes are all over 100. Bill is acutely aware that as you work your way through this, the classes entering the high school, it really is resulting in an enrollment decrease. So his largest class are the sophomores at 120, but you can see it's quickly followed by classes of under 100. So that will be presenting some challenges going forward, but we're not there yet. So he's at 429. If you follow that up, you're really looking at a high school under 400 eventually, if you just follow the numbers of the trend.
If the numbers stay where they are.
If they stay where they are. And our district total, we have 1,238 students in the district at this point. So the next thing is that Michelle and I will create the spreadsheet, import these numbers, update as necessary, and begin the projection. So at the next meeting, you'll have a first look at the enrollment projections going forward. The other thing we'll end up doing is taking the enrollment projection report that we had last year from Carl Ladd and Keith Burke, and we will take a look at which model is closest to reality. Okay, so if you remember, they had, I'm thinking there were like 5 or 6 different trend models, and they said, we think it's going to be this one is the best, but you want to pay attention to the others because you might find out that there's some other trend that actually is working better. So we'll compare the various numbers based on where we land and see which one seems to be playing out as the best. So we'll start that work pretty soon.
Just out of curiosity, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, and if you don't, that's fine. We can wait. What is the number for the 1238 compared to last year with COVID? How many students were enrolled total in the district last year with COVID?
So
I assume it's more are back in the district. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that. I'm not sure if that's the case.
let me just pull this sheet up quickly. Thank God for open tabs.
Like 200 open
900
tabs.
there. Yeah.
So this is your October 2020
Yep.
number. So
Oh, so you're not 50.
Nope, but I still can't see it.
we were projected to
Say
have
190?
1,300.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, I can blow this up, can I?
We'll talk about blowing things up.
Well,
Enlarging.
enlarge.
You gotta go to the percentage up in the.
Where is it? Oh,
Toolbar.
here. Yep. All right. This is the 50-year-old cheater.
Control P.
There we go.
Plus.
Well,
Okay.
too big. It went off the page. Hang on.
So
All right.
these are the.
So the projection was to be at 1,300.
Right.
That was based on non-COVID numbers.
Non-COVID.
Right?
Yep.
We actually came in at 1,225.
Okay.
So now we
25.
bounced back to, what is it, 1,248?
1238.
38.
Yeah. So we've gained. Okay.
So a little bit up. But you'll notice
How
that
many
the
kids
projection for this year was 1,238 or 1,235
Right on.
So we're 12:30.
from 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
we knew there was going to be
Less
somewhat
kids
of
are
a
coming in
decline.
than what less that ninth grade class is
Right.
lower than how many kids graduated? 100? Yeah. So there's seven. Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So that's interesting. So that projection from 2020 was that we would be at 1,235 today, and we're at 1,238. So it's holding reasonably well.
That's one to follow.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That will bring us to school board comments. Anybody have a comment?
I just kind of a random comment that, we got several emails personally from new teachers at Campbell, and it was just nice to have them reach out and say hello and introduce themselves, and so I appreciated that.
Yeah, that teacher to parent communication is always appreciated
Yeah.
and very helpful. Anything else? Nope. All right. That will, we have, we need to discuss the NHSBA resolutions. I am attending the New Hampshire School Board Association Delegates Assembly on October 16th. Yay, me. It's actually a nice time. I get to hang out with other school board members from across the state and talk about issues that are affecting all school boards across the state. So it's interesting. Has everyone had a chance to read the proposed resolutions? So for those of you watching, these are resolutions that other school boards in New Hampshire have proposed to the School Board Association. Basically, if these are passed as resolutions, the School Board Association will testify in support or against any legislation that comes out of these resolutions that is based on these resolutions. So we should vote on these and whether or not you would like me as your representative to vote in support. So I'll just go right through.
You can, or they could take them as a whole to, I think the year before they've.
Done them as a whole.
voted to just go with the NHS.
Go with what the recommendation was. Okay. We can do that.
Unless Tara has any concerns with any individual ones.
Thank you. No, I'm good.
Okay. Did you agree with the recommendations
Yeah.
of the School Board Association? I did too on most of them. Okay. I'm fine with just going with that. Do we need a vote to direct me to vote? Yes. Okay. So all in favor, make a motion. I'll make a motion to direct myself to vote, to authorize myself to vote according to the recommendations by the NHSBA on the proposed resolutions for the 2021 Delegates Assembly.
Just doesn't
And I
sound
second.
right.
Doesn't sound right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. Should I abstain?
No.
Okay.
Really, the motion is just
It's
you
really,
representing the school board.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. It just felt weird to vote in favor of authorizing myself to do something. That's okay. We'll move right along.
You had said proposed resolutions. I assume you also meant proposed. and
Yeah, that was
continuing.
my next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly.
Does everybody vote to accept the continuing resolutions from the NHSBA? I'll make a motion to.
How about this? I make a
Thank
motion
you.
for Tina to vote to approve the
yeah.
continuing resolutions for NHSBA.
In accordance with the
Yeah.
NHSBA
In accordance with the
recommendations.
NHSBA.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 5-0. Thank you very much. I'll send your good wishes to the rest of the school board members. General business, we have public minutes from September 15th, 2021.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of September 15, 2021 as written.
A second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, great. And that will bring us to the CHS principals report. And presentation.
Sure.
All right.
I'd like to, before we begin, I guess, I'd like to just talk about the start of the school year and give you a sense of how things are going. Before I do that, though, I do want to introduce, or have them introduce themselves, two of our guests. Starting back to the school year, we had elections, which was nice. So we had a chance to class officers and then student council. And in the course of that, because we are back to a more normal school year, we have two students here, both juniors, who are going to introduce themselves. They are our liaisons to the school board.
Yay.
And we're really excited to have you here. So if you don't mind.
Great. It's so nice to have you again. I love having student reps.
So we met with them yesterday, had a nice conversation. Michelle gave them thick packets of information so they could understand what their responsibilities are.
It wasn't that big.
It wasn't that big, but we're excited to have them
Yeah.
coming to meetings, and particularly to come to the CHS meeting, so they're a part of that conversation. But they'll also be coming to monthly meetings as well, so they'll be figuring that out in conversations with themselves, with Michelle and with me.
Fantastic. Welcome.
So talking about the start and the return to the school year, I keep reflecting that we lost a third of a year 2 years ago, okay? And didn't lose it academically, but we lost it in terms of students and activities and sports and co-curriculars and all those other things. So last year we have a full school year with 85 to 90% of our kids in school and the other 10 to 15 out of school, depending on the time of year. And decreased athletics and decreased trips and field trips and all those other things. So we haven't had a normal school year in two years. So going into this school year, yes, we've got all of our students back in school. It's an exciting time because we have, again, I mentioned class elections. We have homecoming. We have a dance where 300 students show up, and we didn't have any breakthroughs or anything like that. So we've got the school year off to a really, really great start. And I just think it's really important when we think about how things are going at the high school this year, that it's a testament to all the students, to the teachers, to the staff. It's been a challenging year with Spanish, with losing some of our office staff, and there's just people are just picking up the ball and they're running as hard as they can to make sure things go really well this year. And for that, I think it's important that we recognize all their hard work and what we're doing really well. Wendy, when she was here, mentioned the involvement in the co-curriculars. The numbers are amazing when we look at the kids that want to participate and be involved. And I think that's just, I think it's a wariness from what we've had in the past, and it's an excitement about moving forward. So if you went to the football game, the homecoming game, tremendous crowd there, lots of excitement, and I think we're going to have more of that this year.
Exciting to hear.
Absolutely. So just one other thing, we have testing coming up next week. It's our annual PSAT 8-9, PSAT NMSQT for the National Merit Scholarship qualifying. And so that's all for the grades 9, 10, and 11. We use that for progress monitoring. So we're interested in seeing how that goes for our students. And then the seniors are going to have a series of options of, college and career work, military, and they have to fill out a Google form to let us know what they worked on for that particular day. So we still have the accountability for the seniors as well as the students doing the assessment.
Senior parent question. Are they in school for that, or are they at home that day?
They're out of school.
They're out of
for that.
school,
We need rooms all around the school.
Right, that's what I
breakout
thought. You
rooms
need
and all
everybody
that
to
other stuff.
proctor.
Yes, so that's
Okay.
on their own. There's an honor system to them doing.
Thank you.
that work. Yep. So again, it's good to have a start to the school year with all the students in there and the teachers working hard. So, and a good start to the year. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to have Val Nelson. I'm sure you've all seen Val. I'm not sure you had a chance to meet her, but Val is our new counseling director. and she is fitting in amazingly well. And she took on somebody who was a legend of sorts at Campbell High School, but she stepped right in with her work. So she's going to talk about the mission and vision. And with her, we brought Jamie Fallhaber with us. And Jamie is our mental health clinician. And I think it's really important we have a little bit of a discussion about the challenge that we're seeing for students. And it's not just students, it's students and families, it's staff sometimes. But she's a very busy woman in our school right now. So I'd like to bring both of you up here if you wouldn't mind. And I'll step aside for a bit.
Hi, thank you.
Hey.
So excited to be here tonight. So thank you for having us. I am Val Nelson. I'm the new director of school counseling at the high school, and just wanted to introduce myself and give you guys a little bit of background. I was a school counselor for 15 years at Londonderry, and this opportunity came up and I knew I had to jump on it, and I've never been happier. I'm so excited to be part of this community and part of Campbell, and everyone has been super supportive and welcoming and helpful, and I love coming to work every day. So you guys have a gem here in this town, and I'm just over the tree line in Hudson. That's where I live. That's where I grew up. That's where we're raising our daughter, and it's just, I love the feel of the small community, and I just feel that's what Hudson was, and so to be able to be connected here and be connected with families and the community and students especially is awesome. So I'm loving every second right now.
Good.
So coming in, obviously, like everyone's like, what's your plans? And I'm like, what's my plans? Like my plan is to like make some connections and just figure out what's happening. So, so even at our very first department meeting, I kind of did an icebreaker with everyone in our department, the counselors and our office staff, and just was like, let's just get to know each other right now. Like, I'm not here to like rip Band-Aids off and like, cause a ruckus. So really my goals for the year and the goals that I've really encouraged our counselors to have is to really just focus on building connections and create a welcoming environment in our office suite, in our counseling suite. We want kids to feel comfortable coming in. So me and Terry Taylor, who's the new admin assistant up in guidance with me from downstairs, have we've been experimenting with some redecorating and just making, we want it to be a place where kids feel safe coming and they feel like they can come in and kind of decompress. I think sometimes you call a kid to guidance and they're like, what did I do? And really changing the focus of from guidance to counseling. We are a counseling suite. We're not, long gone are the days where we're guidance counselors. We're not guidance counselors anymore. We are school counselors. So really just trying to get that out to the community and our school staff and stuff like that. So that's one of the biggest thing, and really creating that sense of community. Looking at different processes that we have to see how we can streamline them a little bit, kind of seeing what's been done and maybe bringing a new feel to it, new ideas to it, like the college application process, the referral processes for school counselors to our mental health clinician, and kind of trying to help balance some of that out in our work with students. And then really just continuing to plow through with meeting the needs of our students in all areas: social, emotional, academic, career, and post-secondary options, whatever that may be. I always say there's a path for everyone. It just might be what that path looks like. It might not be a straight shot. It might be some winding roads, but let's just make sure that every kiddo who leaves the Litchfield community and leaves Campbell High School is leaving with some sort of plan, whatever that might be. So really meeting students where they're at. Things we've been doing so far, really focusing on meeting with our seniors and our freshmen, because those early applications are coming in fast and furious. We had a financial aid night, a virtual financial aid night, and we had over 40 families in attendance. It was virtual. Karen Collins from NEEF did an amazing job. And I really opened it up to freshmen through seniors, because I think that it's never too early to start having that financial aid conversation and how we're going to pay for college. But also it was really great for our juniors and senior parents, because the financial aid process is so overwhelming. So that was a really great turnout. And people asked awesome questions. We're still having our weekly chat meetings with our school counselors. Me and Mike Perez are on the committee, and Jamie comes up, and also Elin Pellin comes up from the middle school, and Bill Hicks, who works with our at-risk population. So we kind of all sit around weekly. We ask for that staff feedback. and kind of figure out how we can support these kids that might be getting lost in the shuffle or have some stuff going on. So that's been great. As Bill said, we are gearing up for PSAT 8-9 and the PSAT NMSQT. Seniors will have their college and career readiness day, which, I mean, I gave them so many options, like start working on your college essay if you haven't, start filling out the Common App if you haven't, start researching schools if you haven't. Let's get the ball moving. Go to work if you have to work, meet with military. So they have lots of options to do that day. So I'm hoping they will take advantage of that opportunity. And then college rep visits. Our college reps are back. They're in person meeting with our students, and students are signing up, and the reps are so excited just to be meeting with students face to face. And
There are so many. I mean, I can't
So
believe
many.
it's like one a day practice.
yeah, we usually have at least 3 a day, depending on how they sign up. So it's been great. I mean, and in the past, I think it was capped at 4 students at a time could meet with a rep, but I'm like, why are we capped? I'll find space. Let them, let's just, if kids want to meet with a college rep, I'm not going to deny them that opportunity because we have 4 kids signed up. So some we had 10 kids in the room. Let's go. Let's have this conversation. So it's been awesome to have them back. So that's kind of where we're at right now. For the PSATs, the freshmen are taking it digitally. So that will be great. And then the sophomores and the juniors are taking a traditional pen and paper and pencil. So
We have to bring calculators to EAD.
Yes. So if the public watching, we're going to recommend that they bring in a pencil. We have pencils, but if they could bring a pencil and a calculator, we have some calculators too, but they will need that. We'll have scratch paper and all that kind of stuff. We will do a grab and go lunch that day before they hit the buses. And so that's where we're at. I've loved working with Jamie. I'm going to let her chat a little bit about her. But she's a diamond at Campbell High School. So
thank you.
I'll let you chat a little bit, and then you guys can ask questions.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Jamie Fallhaber. This is my 3rd year now at Campbell. I've met some of you, but I haven't met all of you. But I've loved working with Val as well. Basically, so my role has been to work with identified students, non-identified students, students with 504s, students without 504s, basically anyone. And also to support the staff as well. I meet with students. If I meet with a student, I'll try to schedule with them either weekly, bi-weekly, or they'll decide if they want to come in as needed. That's fine too. Some students I'll meet with kind of short term. Other students, this is my 3rd year meeting with them. I've been doing lunch groups now, which I didn't start, a student started. So that's been fun as well. And it's been good to be back, as Bill was saying, and have students, back in person, doing groups again, running clubs. I'm the advisor for Watts Club. So kids it's been a lot more active this year, which has been really good.
What's Watts?
It stands for We Are, yes, it stands for We Are All the Same. And I believe this is the 3rd year. The 1st year, Jill Dolores, Delore, did I say it? I apologize. She ran it, and then I took over for her when she left. But yeah, so that's it's like a social club, and we meet twice a month. So that's been busier too, which is good. As Val had said, we're kind of trying to streamline the referral process because this year it's been I want to be positive. It's been a great year, but there are a lot of mental health concerns. And I don't know, it could be more prevalent this year, or we could be seeing it more because we're all back in person. But there's actually been a lot of, which is good, but a lot of self-referrals. So a lot of students just coming up on their own, and seeking me out, which is great. But it's just been incredibly busy. So we're trying to kind of streamline that process. And so far we've been doing it for the last at least 2 weeks, and it's been helping.
And we just think it's important. So we just think it's important for, young people to see adults wrapping around them together, so it's not like Jamie's this other entity in the other room on the other side of the office, so and really encouraging, school counselors to like start first. And then if we need Jamie to bring her in to help support those students. And then they see two of us working together. And how cool is that? Where now a student has more than one connection in the building that they can go to. And I'll pop into Jamie's office. Sometimes I'll be like, can you come in here and just meet this kid for a second? Or, just bridging the gap. So I think that it's been great. I think the past couple of weeks while we've really been trying to do that.
Still at the
Absolutely.
beginning of the year, things are still coming out, calming down.
Yeah.
Getting back
Oh
in the
yeah,
rhythm.
absolutely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Probably your business
And they're
card.
just adjusting to being back in a school
Exactly.
setting. Like,
Yep.
that's weird. Like, especially our freshmen who missed pieces, and now they're coming back and they're like, oh,
rules.
see, like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of things
Right.
happening, So I think it's just that adjustment piece that we're still kind of getting in the groove.
Great.
Yeah.
Right.
I find it interesting that people are self-referring
Yeah.
more. And I think about from a work perspective, so many companies have EAPs and they really promoted those last year. And I think it's becoming more, more open about people
Right.
talking about their issues. And so I wonder if that's part of it.
Yeah,
I think
I
so.
think so. I think it definitely
Breaking down the stigma.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going along that, that's one of my biggest goals is to work on breaking down the stigma. And just mental health awareness overall. So I do feel like that's a really good point. I think this past year people were talking about it way more because everyone was struggling. So definitely I think could be part of why there's a lot of kids self-referring. And they're starting to get to know me, which is good too.
Do you go into advisories at all? Because I always thought that was part of the advisory program is some social emotional learning and pieces.
Yeah, I think we've kind of talked about that.
I know it's early in the year and everything, but I think that would be great.
Yeah.
The advisory committee is really examining the advisory.
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
So their first meeting, they met 2 weeks ago. I wasn't there, I wasn't at school. But they're looking at sort of what are the structures you want to have in place for kids? What are the activities that you want to make sure you're covering from ninth grade specific, 10th grade specific, so junior year specific.
Every kid needs a person.
Oh, well, and that's
Absolutely.
the small school, which makes Campbell really nice.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean every kid connects with their advisor or connects with them.
Right.
But they hopefully they find somebody. And if they don't find somebody, they
Yeah.
find Jamie.
Yes.
Well, and that's the great thing too about, again, the small school aspect and also the fact that we're all collaborating and working together, because if a student doesn't, mesh well with me, that's totally fine. Then we have Bill Hicks, and he does the adult mentoring program, which is great too. And Elin Pelland has been coming up as well. And I mean, she always has been, but we've been working together a lot. We had a mental health resiliency group that met, maybe it was last week. They're all kind of blending together, but we met after school and we're planning on meeting monthly as well. So that's good. I think a lot of what we've been seeing is, anxiety and depression, as you would imagine. Also, I think a good reminder, as well for everyone is the significant trauma that a lot of these kids are experiencing or have experienced. I mean, I can't even imagine coming to school and sitting in class all day with some of the stuff that they have gone through. So it's good to come together as a community. And I think the more that we can bring awareness to mental health is really important.
And it really is a big goal of ours for this year is to really maybe we've kind of started talking about doing some trauma sensitivity training with staff and, and just really getting, because I always say to kids, when kids come in, they're like, I can't believe I'm freaking out about this. And I say this to staff. I think I said this on my first meeting when I talked to the staff. And I was like, listen, we all got our baggage. It just depends. Are we carrying a U-Haul or do we have a carry-on? But we have to understand what's in the baggage. And so, it's a goal. It's a goal this year, and to kind of figure out how we can wrap around our students and our staff and our community, because there's a lot.
And I just want to say one more thing too. It's been nice. I miss Michelle and Jody, but it's been nice having Val and Terry up there. And it's also been nice having, I think, 2 new people, because I feel like we're all kind of helping each other out even more so. And Terry's been balancing a lot as well. So now when students are coming up, if she has to run downstairs, we're all kind of jumping in and like greeting the students. So I feel like I've even gotten to know more students that way,
absolutely.
which has been really great. But yeah, so
Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
You're
everything that you do for our
You're welcome.
kids.
Thanks.
Oh, has a question.
Sorry.
Not of you two,
Oh.
of you two. Have you been up to council yet this year? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Tell me, for what purpose?
Not personal.
Well, that's.
Okay, cars, yeah.
You still have VLAX in there? In them, that's awesome.
So your counselors, you know who they are? Have you met with them yet? Okay, all right. I think that's important because
Yes.
you hear in some schools, it
Yeah.
goes through a school year, never
Yep.
sees or speaks to the school counselor. And the one thing I'm cognizant of is that office is really busy. And it's always, I look in Jeff's office and he's always got a kid in there,
Yep.
or he's on the phone talking to somebody about something.
And he's very responsive to emails.
Yes.
Very responsive to emails.
When Miss Jamie said too, like that's so true, like when Mrs. Taylor isn't up there, like there's always somebody there. Like I met like Mrs. Jury, like I've never really talked to her before, but I've met her because she's been in Mrs. Taylor's spot.
Right.
So it's like you can see new faces, like from students too.
That's great.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Does anyone have questions for us? We good?
No, thank you for.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks so much.
That's great.
Do you have any questions for me?
Don't believe so.
I think so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. That will bring us to our business administrators report.
Just a couple things. I didn't submit a written report this week. Just a couple things in terms of budget, where all the departmental meetings have happened. We might have gone through them all. So we're working on that. We're just waiting for salaries and benefits to come through. And it sounds like we should be seeing something by Friday in terms of the salaries and benefits numbers. So the state in this biennial budget did some things with adequacy funding. So essentially, our adequacy funds have increased by $285,000. Now, in order to appropriate those funds, we would have to have a special meeting, or we can default it to return to the taxpayers as tax rate setting.
That was how much?
$285,000. The exact number hasn't come through yet.
Okay.
Now,
Have a special meeting to approve
you
those?
have to have a special meeting to appropriate the funds to spend them.
Last year.
Oh.
So in my thinking, we're kind of special meetinged out here in Litchfield. And where we traditionally in the budget setting process, we would do 200,000. I think we set 285,000 as the minimum return. And we just plan on returning that piece of it. And then we can look at year-end funds as they come in.
You don't have to make a decision on that now, right?
Well, if we were to hold a special meeting, we'd have to do it before the tax rate is set, which is coming within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it'd be a quick turnaround. If we were talking millions of dollars, I think it would make sense. Whereas it's right around the amount that we would normally return anyway.
So if we normally return 200,000 and we have 285,000 that we're going to return, why would we not say we're going to return 485? So the 285
That's
is
a possibility. That's a possibility too. I'd leave that to the board to make that decision.
So
And I can
there's
set
a
it.
couple of ways.
Again, that we don't have to make that decision right now, but I mean,
Yeah.
you have 285,000 of unanticipated
Yep.
funds right now. So I don't think right now we can say, well, we're going to give 285 back.
Well, just
We
in
just
the-
know we have 285
That would be the
additional.
minimum.
Oh, we can
Here's the
determine
piece
that
that-
as we set the revenue.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, Corey, but we can't spend the 285.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't spend.
So that means we could spend our entire budget to zero.
Right.
And return 285 because we can't spend it.
Mhm.
Right.
Which is roughly what we plan to return anyway. Or you're right, we could say we're going to spend the
Increase it.
budget to 200,000 and therefore can't spend the 285, so we return 485, or some other combination in the middle.
Again, we don't know what to
Right.
expect for the next, I mean, we still have an entire year ahead of us,
Absolutely.
but we at least have 285 we're going to give back.
But I think
At least
I think the board should look at it that it's like bonus money that's landed
Mhm.
for the town. And, if you choose not to have a special meeting,
Mhm.
then we know that we're returning at least 285,
Right.
which is 85 more than what we budget to return.
And
What if we put a warrant article in to help with the a warrant article for whatever the wording is for the extra money to be used
But you have
toward.
to encumber the money in the next
No.
2
Can't
weeks.
spend it if.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have a special meeting to
Yeah.
encumber the money for that and then have
I
it.
see.
So the
Or
timeframe
we
is
could
too
have a
small.
warrant article that, with the 200 that we normally would budget to return, maybe that's part of the underspend that we would fund for the,
Yep.
the next.
So this money
not
comes
for the
from stipulations.
Right. I
Except we
know
have to vote it in.
a lot of times we get funding
Right.
that
I'm
we
surprised that
cannot,
they would
is
allow
not for
that
tax
to
relief.
go.
a lot of districts. I mean, there's districts that are getting a lot more than us. I think a lot of it goes based on those free and reduced numbers, and we have a very low percentage of free and reduced. So I just think, and especially in a time where we're going to have some pretty big ticket items coming up on the warrant over the next couple of years, this shows that we're going to return some money, help on this side, and garner some support for some of the other things we're doing.
Any other thoughts? What do you guys think over there?
And as we go through the budget process, we can set the revenue budget, and then if the board wants to increase the amount from 285 to a higher number for a return on the budget side, then we can also we can
Every
do that.
town that's getting this money is going to have to hold a special meeting. Why would they do that?
Unanticipated revenue.
So there are, there are some towns getting $1 million.
Mhm.
So they are having a special meeting on how to spend the additional revenue. There are some towns who say they're getting $1 million and they say that's just going to go for taxpayer property tax relief. Chances are, if you're getting $1 million, you've got a much larger budget than we do. In our case, the amount was oddly similar to what we already commit to return.
Mhm.
So our thought was we just use that additional revenue as the committal amount, which is really 85 more. Now, in the past, so we've given more than 200,000 back.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago, we gave 750,000. So it's not unaligned with the practices, but it's just an awareness for the board that 285 can't be touched. If you don't take action and hold something right away, it'll then become part of the tax rate. So
I believe we have to have a public hearing though, because it's unanticipated revenue.
Based
Only
on
if you're gonna use it.
what's been sent, it's no action. That's the default.
okay.
The default action is to return to the taxpayer, so no action has to be taken by the school board.
Got it.
Okay, so it's returned in the form of offsetting the tax rate for next year? Okay.
Yep.
We need a vote on this?
I think if the decision of the board is to support the idea of doing nothing, I don't think we have to vote on that.
Yeah.
If you were to say, no, we really think we should have a special meeting, we would need a vote to set that up. But if you like the direction we're heading, which is to just let it come in and know that we can't touch it, and therefore the only thing it will do is cut the taxes by 285. We still have, as Brian said, we have until June to figure out, what is the bottom line. But our thought is, you never know what's going to happen with the economy. There's a million things. But our thought is to get as close to 285 as possible with the budget so that, we can fund, you could still have a warrant article in March, and you could say, the first portion of it is with fund balance from this year, right?
Mhm.
So, that's a way to fund some of those other projects. So.
That's actually what I was thinking, but I did not articulate that well.
I was with you. Got you.
I was agreeing with you because I understood it.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions? No? All right.
And
I guess what I'm hearing from the board is that we're okay with just kind of allocating that to be returned to offset the tax rate.
Yes. I think taxpayers will appreciate that.
I think they will.
Maybe, hopefully, the budget committee will see it as a sign of goodwill. Maybe.
I have a question on the manifest. Does that come later?
You haven't reached manifest yet.
Yep.
We're
Yeah.
not there yet.
Put a pin in it. All right, is that it from the BA?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll report that to the budget committee tomorrow night. That brings us to committee reports. Budget committee, we are in our weekly meeting mode. We are currently.
I had a PERC meeting and Mary's gonna give a full report. We talked about books that wanted to be, oh, what? I thought you said a
I was-
weekly meeting report.
It was, but I was.
She's talking about budget.
Middle of
Oh,
budget.
sorry.
Budget.
Sorry.
Agenda.
I'm just going
I
down the
can't
list.
hear you guys.
Oh, actually-
Perk's not even on the list.
I had a meeting. I'm so
Okay.
excited to be part of it.
I'll add you to the list. How about that? Okay. So budget committee, we're meeting weekly now, reviewing the town budget bit by bit. So last meeting was our first meeting to review the presentations from the BA, the town administrator and the town clerk and some of the other representatives of different boards in town. And we continue that work tomorrow night. So super fun. And then after we hear, I think we have three meetings, or maybe just two, and then we go back through and review and propose reductions or increases as the committee. We go through it. So that's where we are with budget right now.
When is the school presenting?
We are presenting November.
It's November
Okay.
18th, I think, is our first.
4th. Well, we're having our meeting to go through the budget on November 4th and November 6th, 8th. Thank you, Corey. November 6th, 4th and the 8th, where they're going to attend that meeting. It'll be at CHS in the auditorium, and that will be live streamed and recorded as we go through our budget and make our reductions or changes as we deem fit. And then we present, or I guess we field questions from the budget committee on November 18th.
Okay.
And then final cuts are by the end of middle of December.
Budget hearing is January 13th.
Yeah. So
So it'll be
before Christmas, we'll be working with our proposed budget. Okay. Any other questions? All right, great. Oh, I don't know if we've met since we had them. We did have a discussion about the idea of a memorandum of understanding instead of the handshake agreements that have been tradition. And I believe I understood that most of the committee was not in favor of necessarily having a memorandum of agreement, but maybe creating one if it's deemed necessary. So like if we have a special situation where we're really unsure about a student placement or something like that, we might enter into agreement that they'll leave those funds in the budget, but it will be returned to the taxpayers if it's not needed. So I think we decided
forward.
So moving forward, yeah. And a few of the members of the committee agreed that handshake agreements and, verbal things that have been kind of passed down from board to board to committee to committee aren't in the best interest of doing business, and that clear expectations are necessary if we're going to have open and transparent conversations about budget. So I think that's kind of where we landed.
Some of them felt that way.
Some of them felt that way.
I think I was here. It felt to me that most were kind of in that realm where it's a bottom line budget and the school board has the authority to spend that as we need to.
I think Tina was explaining to them too that, the days of, the sped budget being padded with
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars, the what ifs it is no longer being presented that way. It's individuals that are that we know have to have placement or services or transportation, and that's what's put in the budget. And the concern is, they do any cuts from that, and then also we have an additional individual that could cost us dearly.
Devin's done a great deal over the past couple of years of bringing that budget down.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's the one departmental budget that worries me at times. You know, I don't know if what we have in the capital reserve fund is enough to address one of those catastrophic needs.
And I think one of the budget committee members was concerned that we did spend some monies last year or the year before from sped transportation. But there's also years that we spend money from the general fund to cover
Right.
sped.
Right. And that's, I mean, in essence, it's a bottom line budget and we make transfers all the time and to cover things that we need to cover. So I don't think that discussion is necessarily put to bed, but we did discuss it and kind of reached a consensus.
General direction.
Yeah, we have a
Sounds
general
good.
direction. Yeah. Okay. Facilities improvement.
Yeah, we met on the 22nd. And to be honest with you, I'm like a little fuzzy about this meeting. I can't I wrote a few, there's been so many, and they all seem to be just like rolling into each other, but I know Kyle Barker was involved with it, and so was Suzanne, who you met this evening,
Yes.
and Calvin. And basically they went over like 3 different tasks we had as far as building needs assessment, educational programs, planning and designing. They talked about Charlie Needwin as far as what his responsibilities were going to be and what processes he'll be taking. They also talked about birth rates are down for now, but we'll be looking to build the school to accommodate approximately 100 per class size. Then we also talked about balancing the school where we initially talked about a K through 5. And their direction really right now is like a K through 4, which would balance all 3 schools out as far as, otherwise you have LMS, who, if you look at their numbers right now, they're at 350, whatever. All of a sudden you pull 100 out, they're at 250. School size is fine, but it's like it's more of a balance. I'm not sure if there's anything else from facilities. I think that, and I know we talked about LMS project and how that was going as far as the roof, the materials have been delivered, and
There's so many meetings. They're all meshing in together
I
right
think
now.
Kyle covered pretty much where we are.
Yep.
right. And that's why, like, I won't go over my weekly ones, the GMS, because every Monday we meet for about an hour and basically discuss. But a few of the things, I don't know if I had it on here. Just gonna find the meeting.
Need a bigger notebook.
Yeah.
And I'm the crazy one.
It was just interesting, and Kyle talked about it as far as groundwater, because, first we talked about, okay, let's take a look at building a new building. Then let's take a look at reworking the existing GMS. And I wasn't kidding when I said, like, every single meeting, it seems like we get another turn, because then he came to us last week or this week. Well, the site up top is actually wetter, closer than it is down below. So then we talked about, okay, do we build it like street, towards the street, because that's really where you want it. And then we talked about, okay, let's build it out towards the baseball field, but you need a baseball field. So then maybe you can put a baseball field in the front. Maybe you go up top where LMS is, which makes more sense. Build the baseball field up there if there's enough land, because that's who plays. I mean, they all walk through the woods and everything else to come and play. It's just these meetings, and like I said, I'm not, because he touched on a lot of it, and so did Suzanne, but there's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of different people looking at different things. And the thing that surprised me the most was the fact that up top, you go 2.5 feet down before you hit water. Down below, it's 5.5 feet. Yet it was nobody ever brought that up to anyone's attention. It's like, well, it's wet up there too. But again, if you had ground drains down at GMS when that thing was built, you probably wouldn't have the moisture problems we have right now. Because 2 meetings ago, he talked about really what we should be doing is shutting the dehumidifiers off. And he explained to us like what that's doing as far as cooling. It's cooling the floor, which is really bringing moisture back in. So it's almost like you're defeating the purpose of, you're running dehumidifiers, you're opening the windows. So you're really causing more of a moisture problem than what's going on. So
It's good that all of those different things are being explored and
Yeah.
kind of brought together.
Yeah.
So we have a solid plan.
And he noted on the upper site where there's so much sand and you go out towards the slope, and the concern of,
They're gonna build
what
on
happens
sand.
if that washes out, you need retaining wall, retaining system out there.
So then on top of the Monday hourly meetings, then we have Suzanne's charrettes. and her first charrette was on
First time I've ever
Friday.
heard this word.
Yeah, was
I don't know
on.
what that is.
What's a charrette?
Mike?
What's a charrette, Mike?
You remember?
So I asked the question,
Yeah.
and it comes from almost like the architectural, artistic side,
Ah.
and it's the charrette is the cart. So
What?
you're a cart. So
Cart.
you design the project, right? But you're literally following it down the hall, making final adjustments on the way to the presentation, right? So
Hmm.
the charrette is sort of this experience where everybody's making adjustments, tweaks, and so forth, right up to the last minute. So that's the origin of the word. I found it weird too. I first heard it several years ago.
Yeah.
They invited people to a charrette in Pennacook about reimagining downtown.
Nobody knows what that is.
Nobody went.
Nobody knew what it was.
You know,
How about
there's a food
brainstorming
truck.
session?
Right,
Right.
I got an invite, so I went.
Something French.
So,
Listening tour. Yeah.
so our first charrette was Friday morning, and it went on for 2 hours.
Oh.
And there were a lot of different people involved, and it's more or less like, what are we looking for from the building, and what different aspects are important, what's not, and then again, that's when it was brought up as far as up top. And not only do you have wetlands up there, not only is it sand, but then it's also a concern, where do you put the septic system? Because there are concerns of additional nitrates that could infiltrate through neighboring houses. So that's a concern. But it was just a lot of just back and forth as far as, what are we looking for? What would experience as far as the building? Like, I think they started off by asking Dan the first question, like, what issues do you have in your existing buildings? Where do you want to start, kind of thing? But it wasn't, we know the building's in poor shape, but just giving feedback as far as, what he's going to be looking for. And with that, I think Kyle touched on it also, they sent out a Suzanne survey out to all staff at GMS. And it was a really low turnout at this time. And really what they're looking for is input. So
It's a hard time of year. I mean,
it is,
students are
but
still
so what
really-
Dan did is, and we discussed giving them a pocket of time,
Yeah.
which they had today, so that they could do it. And hopefully that there'll be more input. And it's important because, they're the buy-ins. They're the ones who are going to be working in the building and living in that building. So it's a whole questionnaire that's a little lengthy, but it'll give some feedback of, what are you looking for in a building? It's similar to what we're going to be asking the public. What's your expectation from the building? And we talked a lot as far as a new building, as far as community use, possibly a community shelter. Where right now we have the high school, it's the only one, so possibly this could be a shelter. So just a lot of things, it was pretty intense. There was a lot of information that was just like flowing in.
And are we still focusing on the energy sustainability, the net zero?
That was a big
That's a big
portion of the
piece of it.
conversation also, but it's also not the most important thing.
Right.
It's an important part of it, but it's the educational part of it. I even brought up at the end of the meeting, it's like, we're talking a lot of as far as public use for the building. My concern is we need to sell this as an educational school. And if there's any bonus, as far as usage, and fantastic, but it's a school we need.
Yeah.
So, but if we can do it at no cost, that we can accomplish that there's
Right.
public usage of the kitchen area or the dining area and a shelter, then that's fantastic. It's a win-win.
If that's just folded into the overall design. Good.
And next charrette, I think, is next week. I don't know what it is.
Didn't we have one
Sounds
this,
like a dance.
didn't we have one today? Community outreach? Was that defined as a charrette?
No.
Suzanne just emailed us that the second charrette
19th.
is being postponed. So look
Oh,
through your emails.
okay.
There's a proposal for a new date.
Yes. No, today we had one for community input, gathering of information.
It was planning for the November 2nd date that we've agreed.
And speaking of that, like, can you send me that chart that Charlie was using? And
Absolutely.
I don't think I have that, because I went back, even the questionnaire, I have it in hard form. He'd given me the first time, but
The thing he presented today?
yeah,
I'll send it to you. I have it.
Okay.
that was it. And like I said, so after this, where Kyle touched on a lot of it, I just gave you some more of it, but I'll just update as far as the Monday meetings. But a lot of them are just like, they're more like think tanks. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, we found this issue, so maybe we'll just roll with this.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good. Liz, do you want to talk about park now?
I don't have anything to say anymore.
You're not
Actually,
next
we
anyways.
just talked
Emergency
about-
management is next.
What?
Emergency management is
I'm going to
next.
give Liz a minute.
All right.
Give you a little break. Have a
Getting
drink
back
of
to
water.
your shelter, I think they use the high school because of the showers for a fallout, for like if there was a hurricane, they need the
That's where
bathrooms. I don't
That's
picture,
where the generator is.
and that's where, I can't picture GMS having a shower.
Yeah, you would need
locker
showers,
room.
but then you also have LMS that has showers, so that could be utilized also.
Yeah, and it's gonna
So we
be-
don't need to
it's gonna
add a
be
row
energy
of
independent.
showers at
No, no, no.
GMS, yeah.
And that's what I was saying.
Be
It,
able to keep it
not
open.
looking to add any cost to the
No.
building. So,
I do like the idea of a place where we can go. How many times have we looked for a place to
so
go
I guess
that's
when
comfortable?
I talked shelter, because I think Corey's the one who brought it up, it was more like, okay, we have air conditioning in the building.
Mhm.
It's a
Oh.
warm day. They can come into the dining area or,
Mhm.
cafeteria and it's cool.
Or
Kind of
community use like clubs and groups.
That would be fantastic,
I
yeah.
think that would be
Um,
helpful.
Nothing happened in Burke, other than we talked about 2 books. Mary's giving a full report next week.
Oh, what are the two books?
The 2 books were brought forth by the English department. One was already approved, Night, and the other one was, is it,
You interrupted us for this, huh?
I gotta get it out while it's on the tip of my tongue, or then it goes back. What's this book? Hunger
Peace.
Games. A
Oh.
Hunger Games book, and there was a big discussion on whether we should go by Lexile or interest. So that was a whole different discussion. Do we want a high interest book we know the kids will read, or do we want a book just mixing up some of the books, especially the sophomore year? The books are dry, tired. Some of them are a bit inappropriate, in my opinion. It just mixing it up a little. I like the fact that they're trying to add some new books and stuff like that. Okay, I'm done.
Great,
I'm out.
thank you. Thank you for that report, Liz.
You're
All
welcome.
right, back to Brian for emergency management.
He lost his mojo.
We'll be meeting tomorrow.
Thank you. Grading and reporting.
All right. This was our first meeting of the school year on September 21st. And there were 16 people in attendance, including 9 teachers. So it was good representation, some remote, some in person.
9 teachers, 16 people. The rest were community members and admins. I'm just
It's not
curious.
community members, it's admins and
Oh.
No
me
community
and
members.
teachers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good representation from each school.
Did not, but I have the names. So actually the names are on the minutes that are now posted on the website.
On that
So
tab that I said.
that's what
On the tab I talked about.
I know. So it's available if anybody wants to look for the notes. It's under the district tab, and then under the district, and then curriculum, and then there's a special grading tab. And so we developed some goals for this year, and one at least that's an ongoing goal. And the first goal is to improve communication around grading, and part of that is Mary drafted an informational pamphlet that is being circulated around the committee, and that is really a district level information about grading at this point in time. And so communication is an ongoing goal. Another goal, then we have 2 other goals by the end of this school year. One is competency summatives and 4-point rubrics. And the goal there is to use PD time and common team planning to develop summative competency assessments and the corresponding 4-point rubrics. The other goal by the end of the year is to look at reassessment procedures. That's relearning or retake. They don't want to get away from the word retake. It's really about learning like another attempt at learning the material. And those will depend on, there'll be some level that is going to be district wide, some procedures that are going to be building wide, and we have to make sure that they're level appropriate for the grades too. So it's not a one size fits all scenario. So each building broke up into a group at the end of the meeting and just kind of discuss some of the things that they felt were critical in their reassessment plans. And then the last goal, at least right now, is And the goal is to have something at least developed by January of 22. So a few more months to rework our work study documents to align with the portrait of the learner. So, yeah, so that's it.
It's nice to
A
have
lot
this
in a 1 hour meeting.
roll. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Any other committees
Yep.
that we can discuss in public?
Capital improvement.
Wait, we're
Met on.
Oh,
The
the
town.
town
Monday?
capital improvement.
Yep.
Committees we can't discuss.
Well,
Brian, you're so busy.
So the capital improvement committee, we discussed what to do with items from 22 or from 21 that weren't spent, and to push them to 22 and how we're going to do that, and probably drop 21 and just put verbiage as far as what was not spent, and then add another year afterwards. There's only a few things. One was the backhoe that they didn't purchase. The selectmen decided not to, but the town still feels that they need a backhoe, so that's going to be put back on. So most of the discussion, we talked about GMS, and then as far as a group, where we stand with that, we talked about LMS and the energy efficiency, and, you know, number 2, and the work was going forward. Then the big thing we talked about is there's ARPA funds that the town is receiving. They're receiving $904,000. They've already received one check for $450,000, and they're just awaiting the other check.
what? AR?
So ARPA funds.
American Relief Plan.
Okay.
So they use like different calculators to, the state comes up with a number of like 4.2 or 4 point, whatever it was, increase in revenues expected by the towns. So through these different calculators that Troy utilized, it shows that they did not make that kind of money. So it was shown as a loss. So that's where these funds come in to offset those losses. So the town can use this money any way they want to. So what they've asked is for the capital improvement plan to be more or less the direction that will go towards the selectmen. Then it'll be the selectmen's decision, but we'll give our advice as far as how those funds should be utilized. And they can use them. Yeah, they can use them how they want. They have to be expended by 2024 and spent by 2026. So, you know, we may give direction like, you know, purchase X with them. But again, it'll be up to the selectmen, but they have a windfall of $900,000. Now they could give it back to the taxpayers.
Well, they could chip away at some capital
Correct.
things that they've been putting
Yeah.
out.
They get the same type of grants as we do, but
Mhm.
it seems to me without as much red tape. Like we would go through grants
Yeah.
management
Right.
system and request reimbursement, but now these are being. He did say there is some monitoring on the other side.
Yeah.
Like they spend it, but then they need to.
Well, and that's
Get
why
approval on the
Troy
back
also
end.
said that he's been advised, and some towns have been advised, don't spend it quite yet. You know, just to make certain that the clarity is there as far as that you can, you know, expend it on these items or not. But it sounds as of right now, and he's going to send us some information. I haven't seen it yet. Has he sent it? Troy's going to send some, more or less outlines the criteria of how you can utilize this money. And the other thing we talked about is impact fees and the updating impact fees. The person who did it for the town is retiring. I guess, what was it, a 1.5 year process or 2.5 years?
Like 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
To
So
develop that.
So the groundwork is there, but this person who's the keeper of
Mhm.
how the impact fee process works, I don't recall what the person's name is, Michelle. So he's going to be leaving, and who is it who's going to be like, want to say taking over and giving that's in the CIP committee.
Oh, Jay.
Jay.
Her.
I think he's going to be presenting something to the town as far as more or less like taking over. Well, like again, all the legwork is done. It's 2.5 years. I guess it was I'm hearing like very extensive,
Yeah,
a lot of input from the town as far as how they wanted to do it.
that was back in 2014.
Not sure when it was.
Well, the planning board changed a few things in 2014 and then they changed them again in 2018.
Yeah. So
He wants the NRPC to.
Yeah, but it
To
seems
do
like
that?
they want to get the impact fees to be more in line with what the capital plan looks like.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at building a brand new elementary school, you're not collecting impact fees towards that school. It doesn't make any sense.
So I inquired if they could look at like putting GMS back on, the impact fee list, which makes sense.
Or at least combining.
Well, and that's what we talked about, which makes a lot more sense. Corey pointed that out, that, most municipalities, that's what they do. It's like,
Yeah.
it's school,
Right.
not like elementary and this and that, which makes sense because then if you have impact fees, let's say $100,000,
Mhm.
I mean, you got 3 schools, you don't know where you're going to need
Right.
those impact fees. So that's something that's going to be taken a look at
Good.
and
Thank you for
we'll
bringing that
continue
up.
on.
All right. Any
That's it.
other committees? All right, great.
No more.
You're very busy people. All right.
So just to make sure, we added perk to this list.
Perk and capital improvement for the town.
Town capital.
Okay, so we'll keep an ongoing list. It's better to say
Well,
we have nothing to report.
I know, it's
So
hard to know because
Yeah.
some of the committees don't tell me when they're meeting, so.
We'll just keep an ongoing list of all of them.
Because capital improvement now, where we were meeting quarterly, we decided after last year, once we made the plan, it was going to be quarterly. And now with these monies, we're going to be meeting monthly. As far as just to make certain we get the plan back up, we're going to be asking all the department heads from the town. And we can do the same thing with the school also. I just thought of that they're going to inquire from the town department heads, is there anything that needs to be changed, anything that needs to be added, anything needs to be eliminated? So I guess I'll ask the same as far as the schools, that what we have on our capital plan, is there anything that needs to be added, deleted,
Mhm.
or, changed?
They're a decent sized conference room. That school needs a conference room for special ed meetings.
Which
school?
GMS?
I mean,
Oh,
figure
no.
out where it's going, let alone the conference.
We need a room. We
haven't
need,
gotten
we
there
need a
yet.
room.
Guarantee there will be a conference.
Yeah.
There will be several small meeting spaces.
Well, we can build a conference room, a standalone if you want, until the school's built.
It's just, you know what, it's just so not.
Yeah, there are a lot of
It's
things.
a
But if there is anything,
Yeah.
the next few, because it's November.
Any idea about the school start time committee? If that is going
I have
to
not-
surface sometime this year?
I have not done that.
Well, that's all right.
Thought I put it in here. Do you remember what
Make a
the first
charrette.
meeting is going to be in November?
I
Thought I put it in my phone. No, November
I say
1st.
Put Brian on.
That's right. That's right.
know.
So
I know.
if there is anything from the school, if you just provide that beforehand, either to myself or Corey, and if there's any updates.
Okay. Anything else from committee reports?
I did have a question about the hold on, which one? I think this would fall under emergency management, maybe. Are we doing anything about the cell service at like CHS and other
It's always
schools?
been like that.
I
Kind
mean,
of fell off the radar.
I know,
If you're going to
but
build this nice new tower in Dara, you're going to get all kinds of reception.
isn't it already up?
The
It's
tower's
up.
already
It's
up.
up.
It's
It's
kidding.
not
because of the
working.
it's the building. My building's like that too. It's hard to get in like a concrete cinder block building. And quite honestly, the kids shouldn't be on their phones in
You-
the school.
No, they
You go-
shouldn't.
you-
But in the event of an emergency,
There's
get
like
a hold of your parents. That is critical.
CHS, at least you're outside CHS and you can get
Oh, yeah, you
some
have to
service.
go in the
There's
front
like
of
a
the
half
school.
mile radius around LMS that you can't get
Yeah.
anything.
It's a dip.
It's just total shutdown. Like, whoop.
So the tower that's at Dara does allow emergency responders. So the purpose of that is it's like a repeating tower. So
Okay.
the police and fire are able to communicate effectively. They're not going to lose their communication within the schools because it's right there near the school. We have the ability to tap into that. So one of the things that we could explore is getting on the same frequency so that in the event of emergency, we could communicate directly to.
When you say we, is it
school officials? So
school
like
officials?
the walkie-talkies that Bill and Mike have, for
Yeah.
example. You could switch
I
the
remember you
channel,
talking about this.
whatever,
Okay.
and
Communicate with the
Communicate.
emergency response.
police and fire would have some other private channel, because I don't know that we want to hear everything, but
Right, right.
they could come to our channel and be able to communicate with us about important details that we need to know. So that is where we benefit from that tower, but it's not a cell tower. It does not address the cell tower shortcomings.
Just ask your kids, they can tell you where you can get reception.
The back hallway where the nurse is, that back hallway, the second floor.
Yeah, right by my office.
Yep.
Because I see them
Yep.
up on the.
They always hang out
And the
right there.
stairway by his office, second floor. Someone told me that. I never used it when I worked there.
Sure. All right. Old business. We have policy discussion on IHB class sizes. We seem to keep going round and round about this.
Well, we wanted an opportunity to get this out in front of the public, that we were going to have a discussion. I think there are thoughts and opinions that run the gamut. Michelle and I were reviewing our notes, and well, we were reviewing my notes, and I couldn't understand what I wrote down. It said,
See what I wrote down.
develop maxes and minimums. And I'm like, what were we supposed to do with this, Michelle? So what we did is nothing. We brought you back.
I thought you
The
were going to take
policy.
it back to your admins and have them give them a discussion. That's what I thought.
And then we would discuss.
And then we would discuss.
All right.
Yeah.
That I never wrote down. So I didn't. Because what I looked at was, I'm like, what was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to change these numbers somehow?
I'm getting it, but what exactly? Don't you?
But what are we expecting from the administration?
Yeah, what do you expect from them?
I mean, I'll be honest. The administrative team is going to try to optimize. You know,
And that's fine, but we might as well give them an opportunity to voice
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
Right,
and
yeah.
then we can take a look at it and have
Right.
a
What has
discussion.
their experience been? What's
So I have an admin meeting a week from tomorrow. We will put this on the agenda. We'll have a discussion about this policy, and then we'll bring that back the following Wednesday. So
They're going to say 17 kids is better than 24. There were 24 in my son's
They can say
class.
that, but they also have to understand what the, ramifications are and the cost to
Mhm.
the town. But I'm also curious as far as what the high school is going to have to say as far as class size, especially going forward and taking a look at what their numbers are.
right?
Yeah.
I think another thing to think about too is I feel like every August we're kind of will we or won't we, will we or won't we? If we somehow implement like a deadline, I know it's hard to do,
I think
but
it was,
make a decision by a certain date so that we can actually hire qualified staff if it's going to be in one, if it's close and borderline. I think keeping the admins and the staff in limbo until the first day of school is really stressful for everybody in the building.
I think that's kind of difficult to do though. I mean, I know what you're saying, like set a deadline. Look what happened this year.
Went
I mean,
down
wait
in
till like a
every
week
grade.
before school started. It's like, whoop, okay, yeah, we need one. And if we had you set the deadline, let's say like August 15th,
We wouldn't have got
you
one.
wouldn't have one. I think it's more like establishing a number,
Mhm.
steadfast number and saying, okay, that's where we draw the line and that's when we add a teacher. It's just difficult because you could have a deadline, like I said, and next thing you know, 6 more kids after
Oh,
the
I
deadline
know.
come in.
I know.
I know, but then
But I think it's
you're
more,
all scrambling at the last.
well, that's just it. I think it's gonna be a deadline. If you want to do a deadline, that's gonna be a deadline for us. So
Mhm.
let's say it's August 15th. I just throw that date out there. That's when we don't do anything. And if class size goes above what we want, it's gonna have to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned it as something to consider. Something that we should think about.
if Michelle and I can get the October 1st or the enrollment projection sheet done, we'll take that to the admin team for feedback with this. Because that's the other piece, is that this couples into it, because down below you say, this is what we're predicting, and here's how many teachers we need to budget. And so we'll factor all of that in and bring it back to you on October 20th.
Right.
But we never adjusted LMS the way we should have.
Nope.
Just
And you were going to add in some numbers for the low end of the range too.
Right.
Remember that?
That's the thing. We
Sure.
we have this policy that goes up through grade 12, but we teach programmatically from 5 to 12 right now. So
we're reactive instead of proactive.
Mhm.
So are we going to have a minimum? Is that what you say? 16 is the minimum?
Well, I think I'd have to look at it again, but I think, what is it? 3 teachers minimum or 3 class size minimum. And we were at like the lowest range. We were at the lowest of the range on the chart, and we just need one level lower because the bottom line is our classes are getting smaller.
So adding in 3 classrooms.
That's,
Yeah,
that's what I
whatever it
wrote
is.
down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where's
We need
that?
3
Oh, here it
classrooms
is.
of 1
Yeah. So
grade.
it starts at 4 classrooms. So
Right.
yes,
Mhm.
what are the numbers for 3 classrooms?
Right.
Okay.
And then I think the board has to decide, this, even though the striving for, the trigger numbers are based on the upper end of that. You hit the max in 3 classes before you do anything. And is that where you want to land?
Well, I think we hit the max in 4 because right now there's 96 in 4th grade. So with 96, that is 4 classes of 24. If we're striving for 23, all 4 of those classes now are 1 over,
Right.
which is why we added the 5th when we thought we were 98.
Mhm.
Now we're back to 96. So it's, do we want that trigger number at the beginning, at the end, or
Right.
where
So
I'm
right now
kind of
you're-
landing somewhere in the
Right now, you're in
middle?
a situation where one student drove that extra teacher.
But what about third grade? They're at 86. Wasn't that the trigger? 84, we should have had a 5th teacher.
3rd grade,
Was it-
84
Yeah.
We didn't add a 5th grade, a 5th.
A third.
is the trigger.
Third, we did not add a 3rd grade teacher.
We did.
And now we're
I
down
think
to
there's
84.
There's 5.
Oh, this-
There's 5
okay.
third. We added a 4.
We added a 4th.
Sorry, a
Fifth?
5th.
So how many kids are in each class? 5 divided by 84. So we're below the trigger number. See, that
But
makes me
then
mad.
the grade 3 is 20.
It's different number
So
than 4th.
Your strive for numbers differ.
between grade 3 and
K
4,
to 3.
it's
Okay.
it's lower.
It's 20?
Or 1 to
Yeah.
3.
4th grade, it bumps up.
So how many kids are in each third grade class? 17? I can't do the math in my head. 16?
So I got to go to the number. Hang on.
I have to have the numbers in front of me.
No. We got to see the actual.
So we have 5 third grades too?
Yeah. So 3rd grade is
5 third
84.
grades?
That's
by
what, where
5.
we told him to put this
5 by 5.
second grade teacher from last year shifted, right?
That's 16 kids in each
I thought they
class.
shifted down to kindergarten.
That's ridiculous. Pretty low.
We had to add,
Sorry, I know we've had this conversation.
no, we had 5 third grade teachers last year,
Yeah.
and that stayed the same, right?
He wanted to bring it to the 4th
He
grade.
wanted it. We said no because we thought the need should be 3rd grade, and the number had already been triggered, so it stayed. Moving the 2nd grade to kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
adding and having a 5th teacher there, and then 3rd grade stayed 5.
Okay. And then
And then
added
at
a fourth.
in August we added a 4th grade because we were above the trigger number, and then now we're right at all 4 classes being
Yeah.
there, but not all 4 classes plus an extra one.
So there are 16 kids in third grade and there are 21 in first grade. 20, how many are in each first grade class? They're at their high end, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, because it's grade 1 to 3.
1st grade is 76 today.
So they have 4 teachers.
So to boil it down, when Dan said I want to move the 3rd grade teacher to 4th grade, he was correct,
Right.
right?
Yes.
We didn't listen. We said keep it in 3rd. We kept it in 3rd, and now
Because
we
there
don't
were
need it.
86 kids.
Right.
At that time.
And
At
now we
that
have
time.
84.
Right.
But we also went to 90 from 98 to 96 in 4th grade as well.
Right.
But that's
So
still
that
above
number-
the trigger number.
No, it's not. 97 is the trigger number. Because you're allowed to have one in all 4 classes. It's when you get
Yep.
that extra one
Right.
that makes it. So either way, we're above our strive 4 number. And if we had had 4 4th grade teachers, we would have been
Right.
above it with the same.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with 21 kids in a class. I taught a combined
Right, but
first and
fourth
second
grade
grade
is
class.
4th grade
24.
isn't 20 though.
No,
4th
I'm
grade
talking
is,
about first, second, and third grade. I taught a combined grade 1 and 2 class, and I had 21 kids.
They have 21, 22 in 1st grade, don't they?
But they have 16 in third grade.
Because we told them to keep the 5th 3rd grade teacher
That
there.
should have gone to first grade. Where they should have had the numbers.
We didn't have those numbers then, though.
But we
That's
don't
the-
have the
that's the
numbers
problem.
in third grade or 4th grade now.
We do have in 4th grade.
All right, 4th grade.
Okay, so we'll have a lively discussion in a couple of weeks then.
We will. That sounds
Okay.
it.
Sounds good.
Well, we say we're going to discuss at the next meeting, then we just start discussing in 15 minutes.
Well, I think we all know where we're all coming from.
There'll be nothing left to discuss the next meeting.
I want to know what the norms are in the state. I'm going to research.
They're
in
much
my
higher.
spare time.
The norms, when you say the norms, you mean the
Like what?
averages?
Yeah.
We've reported that in the past.
Yeah.
Our numbers are on the higher side.
I do buy it, but I don't want it. I don't want to
But
buy
it
it.
is. Yeah. Okay.
Then we should be getting top scores and everything. Yep.
Well, that's a
Working
whole
on it.
other discussion.
That's
Right.
one of our goals.
Let's go back to visit our friend, the coronavirus.
Yay.
I'm sorry, it's on the agenda. We have to do it.
So let me start.
Lori.
I'm
Way
going to
too old
open
business.
the August one.
I thought that was
August,
good.
September.
I thought it was a nice spreadsheet. I thought it was, especially the high school. I wasn't expecting to see that.
So it's kind of, I mean, I think we've gotten, it's very colorful, but I think
Yes.
we've actually gotten represent what it is that people are looking for in a pretty simplistic way.
Yes.
So here's the summary sheet. You'll notice that we're tracking Hillsborough County. It stayed substantial throughout the entire month. We're then looking at the town of Litchfield. That also stayed substantial throughout the month. And then the school impact, for the most part, we were low. Always low at the high school. Almost always low at Griffin. We did have that one medium case because of attendance issues. And then LMS, if you remember, we had that outbreak.
Yep.
And so we hit high, dropped back down to medium, and then back down into low. And in terms of masking, we've been targeted all year with that one required period at LMS. And then if you take a look at each sheet, this is where you kind of drill into it and you can see exactly what's happening. Now, we added a column right here, column J, mass status. We wanted to have a daily mass status. So what was happening is the only place we were capturing our mass status historically was on that the weekly one. And Dan made the point, he's like, we really ought to know exactly when we started mass and when we stopped mass so that historically we have it. So we added that in here. But you can see these are Griffin's numbers, and toward the end of the month it was bubbling up into the medium range with some attendance just going over that 7% threshold. When you look at the middle school, it gets really colorful because we hit that high school impact, and that's tied to that
There were
that
3.
outbreak that we had.
Yeah.
The state, by the way, they've now redefined outbreaks and clusters.
Again?
Yeah, because
Oh my
they-
God.
3.
Seriously?
That's traumatic. And then you think 3 kids. Wow, that's red. Wow.
they want to
Could have been a
keep
sleepover.
they want to keep you on your toes, so they've redefined it, but we still aren't sure exactly what it is. So just bear with us. But
Stay with it for now.
Yeah, they're
Holy
keeping us
moly.
on our toes. And then the last one is the high school has been pretty straightforward. They've only had that one medium day, and notice it was 7.01. So they just barely trickled over. So the high school's actually done a pretty good job. All right, I'm going to close that one.
That was September.
That's August
August,
and September and the last day of the week. I left October 1st on here because I'm like, let's just why pull a Friday off and put it on the next chart. So that sort of is our opening piece. And now let me bring you to where we are right now. And I just want to start on the summary page. So we're preserving September here. Okay, I put it in purple.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And then I brought October up to the top. So tomorrow we'll build October 7th, our weekly check-in. Then I'll put November, December. So the most recent month will always be at the top of the chart, but this will hold the historical data going forward. Okay. I think, Tara, you asked
I
about
asked for that. Yeah.
retaining that, and that's how we plan to hold it.
It's totally a minor thing, but is there any way to make it so that, because the 9-2, when I'm looking at the numbers, you start back at the month. So if it's just reverse all the way up,
Oldest on the bottom.
oldest on the bottom. So it would be 9-2 was the bottom row, and then 9-9, 9-16, 9-23, 9-30. So then I can look at that new cases per 100,000 and compare it to the right number. Because right now, when you put that in, I'm going to look at 294 or 178. But
I'll figure that out.
I just minor. Sorry.
No, it's a
But that it makes it easier to see
I
trends
just chronological.
as the year goes.
right up. Right up. Perfect. We can do that.
We find some different colors too.
Yeah.
We just can have every shade of
You
purple.
can just sort it based on the date.
There isn't
Should
enough
work.
green
You,
on
you
there.
don't like the purple, Brian?
No, I like all the colors. It's like a rainbow. Indigo.
All right.
Like October should have like a fall
Functional.
color to it.
I
Yeah.
agree. Red for apples in September,
Yeah.
orange for pumpkins.
Well, I
and-
thought about that, but
Oh, good
Red's
lord.
too
You
alarming.
could do like a nice mustard
Oh,
yellow.
but look, GMS is orange. The links.
I do like that.
Yes, that is something. Yeah.
My type A personality really likes that.
all right. So we're gonna come over to Griffin quickly. So you'll notice that actually I didn't do today's, but Griffin stayed at medium status today.
Yep.
Their attendance is, I mean, they're up to 9%. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of elementary schools, the 7% threshold, we typically run at a 4%. So that's why we felt comfortable putting 7% is tipping in the medium, and now we're just hovering in that area. And if you take a look over here, we have 13 students who are quarantined, but not yet positive, not identified as positive.
But it's also allergy season.
8 of them are pending tests, and some of those are allergy
Yeah,
tests.
I have a couple kids,
head
and the parents are
colds.
afraid to send them to school because they'll be sent home again. So they just keep them home. A couple of my kids are home.
There are head colds going around right now. There are
It's a change in the
there's a
season.
stomach bug going around.
I had
So
that.
more hand sanitizer, I guess.
Mike, does the
yourself.
quarantined not positive students, that 15 for GMS, let's see, on the 4th, is that part of the 42 total student absences?
Yes. So you have
Okay,
42
can't
kids
tell
who are
based
out.
on the-
We know that
format.
15 of them
Yeah.
we've
Okay.
told to stay out,
Okay, got it.
and
Yeah.
10 of them are pending tests. So it just gives you a little bit more specific information on
Okay.
those.
They were told because they're showing symptoms. So once they get tested,
And it's a 1 to
They're
5 wait
negative.
time.
Right.
I asked at CVS in Bedford, drove right through.
It's
No
what?
lines, no waiting in Bedford.
For what?
The CVS testing, I was picking up a prescription.
Yeah.
And I said, "You're really busy." She goes, "We just give them the thing. They put it in here." I go, "How long?" She goes, 1 to 5 days. They'll get the results.
But that means
Yeah, but that's 5 days.
5
minimum.
days
Yeah,
out of
of
school.
school, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's some frustration on parents' part, but it is what it
I'm
is.
such a parent.
Oh, did you have to get- You want to get
We went, we went to Walgreens and it was the same thing. We just went through the
1 to 5
drive-through.
days?
He said 2 to 3 business days, but yeah, that's. So he's out because he has a.
well, it's better than last year, like 10 days.
True.
Yes and no. I mean, that's the hard part is
Yeah.
we don't have synchronous now. So if your student's out for 5
I know,
days, that's
yeah.
5 days of missed instruction. They are getting work. Tyler was able to email his teachers who
Yeah.
sent things, but is that the same as last year? I wouldn't have minded as much because okay, you're still kind of
Yeah,
there. You're
log in and you're
virtually
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see why there's parents who are frustrated, particularly when you look at the middle school and elementary school. Those are high absentee rates for
Better to
both
keep your
schools.
kid home till they feel better.
I think
Yeah.
what's frustrating is you can't get a test right away and you can't get results right away.
Right.
No.
Right. And I mean, that's nothing that we can really control. That's a state thing. We just need more rapid test sites.
So, Mike, can you just, for the record, I guess, make clear, we had talked about that Safer at School program, and we did a little bit more research into it, why that wouldn't help with this right
Yeah.
now?
So I had a conversation with Chip McGee, who's superintendent in Pelham. So Pelham engaged with the Safer at Schools program. And I said, Chip, here's the thing we're trying to solve, which is a kiddo has a sniffle and we want a negative test, and it's taken 3 to 5 days, it seems. He says, this isn't going to solve that at all. You got to send the kiddo off and get a test somewhere. What SAS does is it allows, they basically in Pelham, they test 100 kids at random, staff, whatever. So everybody swabs and they put it into a big pool, one big vat of collection of that. And he said the good news is that every time they've done that, you're really looking for asymptomatic positive people. So these are kids who are in school, kids who are healthy. Does anybody in that 100 student sample come back? What he finds the value to it is that everyone has come back no positives. So it's allowed them to trust their masking rules because they're doing this. And so that's the advantage. Now, if it came back that there was a positive, then think about this though. Now we're going to tell 100 people, one of you has it.
Is this in the elementary school or all the schools?
All the schools.
Interesting.
Bedford has the same thing where I work.
And so what does that mean? Those 100 people
Yep.
are now quarantined? And, while you're waiting to figure out who it is,
I think they retest.
they then have to go and get a test, right?
Mhm.
So
That's silly.
I'm not sure. I said to Chip, I don't see the benefit to it. And he said, really, the benefit is to catch the asymptomatic so that you can isolate. But what I'm afraid of is if you're testing 100, you catch one.
Yeah, did he say, like, do they don't identify as you have it?
No,
They don't.
no, it's random. It's not random. It's
Anonymous.
it's back to the pool. Somebody in
Yeah.
the pool has it, is
Okay.
the way I understood it.
Interesting. And I did read that it's only for asymptomatic people, and I think it's for unvaccinated too. Did
Yeah,
Chip
you
say
can't be
anything?
vaccinated for it because that'll trigger a positive.
Right, because it's
I
an
believe.
antigen test.
Yeah.
So it's only for unvaccinated, asymptomatic, or healthy people. So
we're
it wouldn't
sending
solve our problem.
Kids home with runny noses to get tests, but we probably have 10 kids running around at GMS now who have it, who are asymptomatic. and we
Or who
no-
have runny noses and
yeah.
came to school anyway.
What?
Or who have runny noses but came to school anyway.
You could have
Yeah.
the same thing in any one of the schools right now.
Yeah.
Asymptomatic.
Interesting.
I guess as I'm thinking outside the box and we've exchanged some emails on it, is there, and could you talk to, I know you guys meet on Thursdays, what the admin team, do they have any proposed solutions for this situation where right now there just isn't an availability of rapid tests to be able to get your kid back to school without missing at least an extra day to sometimes 3 until you get your negative test? Have we thought about buying a bunch of home tests and administering them at school so we can be sure of the results, or have we, I just don't know. I feel like it's really difficult for parents right now.
Went to Florida.
Yeah, well, apparently they're better than we are right now, but
They're
The
going
state
back.
was
They're
going to
not-
offer
they're not
some.
quarantining
Sorry,
kids.
I maybe missed the beginning part. I thought the state was going to offer some
Yeah.
voluntary.
That was
testing.
the pool
That was the
testing,
pool
but
test.
it's
Oh,
only
that
the
makes no
pool.
sense to me.
Yeah.
It's 100 minimum. That seems
No, I think
ridiculous.
they-
It's
I
not
think
even
they-
a true. It's
You
not.
decide
It's
what
like
you're
so-
saying.
They picked 100. I mean, that might be
Right.
X% of their population. I don't know why.
But
they
it
picked
doesn't help
100.
the kids who have, possibly a head cold, possibly a stomach
Right.
bug, possibly allergies, who need to get a negative test to come back to school.
But it's
That's
the
all
labs. It's
really?
not us. It's
Oh,
not.
man.
It's just an
Right, it's
inconvenience.
just the
random.
way it is.
case in point, Tyler was sick on Sunday night. He threw up. Just once, he threw up. He's quarantined. That's a symptom. He has to stay home. He has to produce a negative test, which is fine, except that we couldn't get a rapid test anywhere. There weren't rapid tests available, so we had to wait for a PCR. So he was out a whole other day before. Thankfully, we only had to do one day. He's back today, but
I know another family in town. It went through their family. They all had allergies.
Yeah.
So there were kids out throughout the whole week.
I'm just trying to think if there's some sort of solution. And I know I'm not the person to do it. I think the admin team is the person, the people to do it. But is there some sort of offering of tests that we can do, that we can purchase, that we can have so that kids can be rapid tested to come back because they're symptomatic, or at least the unvaccinated? That would solve the GMS attendance issue potentially.
Let me take
If
that
we
back.
can't get rapid tests, you can.
Well,
You might be able to through the state. I don't know.
we can explore that. The nurses have expressed a concern, but we have to weigh the concerns against the benefits, right? So to see if that's
Right.
something that can be done.
Well, the question is, if a nurse administers a rapid test, is that acceptable as far as saying, okay, the person doesn't have it?
Yeah, rapid.
Because we won't let them home test.
Well,
That's
it's the
where
same
I-
thing.
Yeah, I
It
feel
would
like
be
if
a
they
home
did-
test kit, but the nurse would administer it.
What else I'm saying. So
Yeah.
then would we accept that as,
I think that's what the admin
Non-positive.
team would need to talk about. But I would assume some of the concerns with the home test is not being able to confirm the date of the specimen, the locate, who took it, when the
digital.
positive or negative came back, et cetera.
then you'd have to get permission also from the parent to administer the test.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed. But I think there's a lot of parents that would say, if it saves me from waiting 4 hours at urgent care, you betcha, do the test.
And to
4
be honest
days
with
of-
you, I think it's cheap. I think it's cheap money. They're not that expensive.
And it just
Right.
it would get kids hopefully back in school sooner.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
And
again, there
that's-
has to be a comfort level with our nurses. And
Right.
again,
And
I
they're
feel
comfortable.
like that's the admin team to explore and figure out if that's something that we can offer.
And
But
optional for parents.
right.
Some may not.
And then, they offer through the state as far as rapid tests can be purchased them through them at a cheaper rate. Or I know that
Right.
major companies have like reduced them to cost, but I mean, maybe there's grants out there. I don't know. I mean, they can be utilized.
And really, back a year ago when we were in this situation, at least we still required a negative test to come back to school, but there were more testing sites open. You could go to the National Guard sites and you could drive through and have your answer in 50 to 20
Yeah,
minutes.
it's harder to get a test.
And
right
those
now.
are all shut down now. So
Right, they're gonna
I
start
think,
reopening more sites.
I'm hopeful. I passed one today at the mall.
There.
Yeah, but the one at the mall
that's where I
costs
saw one.
$245.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh my
Patty
god.
was telling us that the other day.
Yeah.
Because people got to go on an airplane.
Oh, man.
So if they need to
Yeah.
travel, they'll
Yeah.
go pay that $275 to make sure they can get on their international flight with
Jeez.
proof of a COVID test within 72 hours, and
Yeah.
people will pay it. I wouldn't.
That's like an airline ticket.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Learn something every day.
All right, we'll take that to the admin team and take a look, and try to see if there's any other districts that are doing that. So
I think you have to get the buy-in from the nurses also.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the technician at CVS. She doesn't touch the sample or anything. She hands it through the box and then there's a collection bin. They don't do anything.
Right. But again, if we can have someone drive up and do that, and the nurse just watches them, so she's clear. Oh, you went up far enough. Oh, you didn't go up far enough.
Yeah, 'cause
Whatever it is.
those are the concerns with the home test,
Right.
Is
Right.
was the sample collected properly? Because that's going to
Sure.
determine whether
Right.
the results are valid. So
Mhm.
that's part of the concern, and then of course, it's all date stamping and,
Sure.
and so forth. So, but
I definitely understand the concerns. I just hoping we can get creative with a solution,
Yeah.
because the more time our kids are missing school, that doesn't benefit anyone,
Right.
particularly the student, but also the classroom, the teacher trying to catch that student back up. There's a lot of different components to it.
I
So
think we're gonna have much higher absentee rates when parents aren't afraid to, well, parents who do keep their kids home with allergies. I talked to a parent today. She goes, he has a sniffle, he has a cough, it's allergies, I know it is, and he feels better today. I'm like, do you know it's allergies?
The thing that parents need to do is they need to get documentation to the nurse that the child has allergies, and that would
Right.
rectify those problems when they say he has allergies and you have it on record.
there was one other point I wanted to make on COVID.
Why do you have the reopening guidance and the masking chart there?
Just so that you have it available to you. There was not any recommended change or adjustment to that. It was just
Okay.
we left the link for you.
All right. Oh, and the nurses are developing a new website.
Yeah. So on that point, on Friday's PD day,
Mm.
so the nurses have volunteered to create a website. They're going to model it on other school district websites, but it will be kind of a one-stop shopping on COVID facts for Litchfield. So, the algorithm, for example, is confusing to some staff, confusing to some parents. So they're going to put it into sort of FAQ format. If I'm vaccinated, then what do I have to do? And the answer is keep working because there's really no exclusion that's necessary if you are vaccinated. So they're going to create that in a website. We hope to have that up and going by middle of next week.
On the SAU page or an individual?
It'll be a
school
link off the
page?
coronavirus page, I would imagine.
Okay.
And if the other thing comes to me, I'll let you know.
Are there any questions on the manifest?
We answered our questions.
Okay.
We did. We were.
I was excited that there was a question on the
just
manifest.
curious.
There were
Yeah.
actually, I was curious and I wanted to know, we figured it out before, like there was an Eversource bill.
Yeah.
Like there were 2 in the 5,000s and 1 in the 9,000. So I'm assuming we assume the 9,000 was CHS. And I was just curious, it is CHS. I'm thinking like sports, their lights are on longer, the power equipment, all that. It's 9,205.
LMS and CHS have large power accounts, which are those big, the lights and all that stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah, and then the other one was daily sales, and that's refunds to lunch accounts, which I didn't get because they rolled Tommy's into Michael's account. So there were little checks here and there for seniors who graduated their lunch
Yep.
account, what was left over. And Michael Polisi, what did he repair?
he's Verticals Inc. He did all the new blinds at LMS.
Oh, nice. For the new windows?
Mhm.
Nice. Thank you. That's it.
All right. Public input. Do you have a Google Meet going? There is no one left. in attendance.
Nobody's left in the room.
That's okay.
Ding.
And nobody's
There's
waiting
my-
for us in the
Oh.
virtual meeting.
All right. Then I think we solved everybody's problems and answered all their questions.
And we are right on time.
Holy.
No, we're not. Are we?
We are.
7:45,
We're
not
5 minutes ahead.
All right.
So-
Yes.
I'm
Oh, now Mike's going to make us
Guess
late.
not.
going to do this in 3 minutes. Ready?
2 minutes.
So,
Coronavirus?
this goes back to the idea that when there's a household exposure, because remember, going to contact tracing, it's only when there's exposure in the household. And when a family's able to isolate, you're going to count 10 days from the last contact, right, of that household exposure. So we've had a lot of communication with the state. It's clear as mud, but they are they're releasing students who are in the household from quarantine based upon parent communication about what the living conditions are in the house. And so, we were trying to hold to the 20 days that we've done in the past. But the state is saying it's okay for this student to go back to scout meetings, to play on sports teams, to go out in the neighborhood, to have a sleepover with somebody. They've kind of opened the gate, but then we're sitting there saying, but they can't come to school. And by the way, that caused a lot of angst because we don't have the remote. We don't have the
Right.
options available. We're sending packets home. We're having, touch-ins with the teachers, but not in the same way. So even though the state called and scolded us for trying to do the come back to school with a negative test, because they said you can't test out of quarantine. I said, but you released them from quarantine
Right.
in
What
the
did they
community. So we're just going to follow your guideline. I said, if you want to keep them in quarantine later, you did that. We'll follow what you do. But if you release them from quarantine, we're going to say, get a negative test and return back to school. So we've done that in a couple of cases. And I just want the board to understand why we've done that. I was so frustrated because the DHHS worker who liaisons with the community schools, I should say, actually called Martha and me to say, we don't like this practice that you put in place. And I finally just said, but it's your practice.
Right.
You're
Right.
releasing them from quarantine. We're not going to add 10 days to your release any longer. We're not going to do that. So I just want the board and
So
the
is that
community to
across the board now? They don't need to speak to DHHS?
They still do.
Oh, they
Okay.
call.
And when DHHS
Wow.
says you've satisfied the quarantine requirement,
Yeah.
then they have satisfied our quarantine requirement, because we're not going to have a stricter
Right.
time period. And
That's
the
fine.
nurses, I'll be fair, the nurses are not thrilled with it.
Yeah.
But I said, if DHHS is not enforcing it, we don't have quarantine authority. They do. We have isolation authority, but why are we isolating above and beyond quarantine is the question. I think the better thing is to require that negative test.
Yeah.
The other thing, I'll just be honest with the board. In both cases, I have said to the family, but you understand, if the child was vaccinated, there is no quarantine necessary. And then I've gotten feedback about why I'm pushing vaccines. And I said, I'm not pushing vaccines. I'm stating facts. The facts are, if you are vaccinated, there's no quarantine. Keep coming to school. We're going to ask you to put a mask on, or you're asked by the state to put a mask on. Okay. But you could be in school every single day. Even the first 10 are exempt. I'm just pointing that fact out. And so, but it's a difficult position that we're in on it. And I just want the board to be aware of it, but we're doing our best. And I think we've landed in the best case scenario we can.
So we're not requiring a negative test for household exposure? We are.
After,
only 10 days.
after day
After
10,
10 days.
from the
Okay.
last
And that's
time.
what we talked about at our last meeting. We thought that was a
Correct. And then the state, somebody who was
recommended us.
watching that notified the state to say Litchfield's allowing kids to test out of quarantine.
Oh,
That's
but we're
not what we were doing. They still have to quarantine.
Okay.
When the state says the quarantine is up, we say, get a negative
get a
test.
test, yeah.
If it's
You don't
before
have to
20 days.
isolate.
Okay.
You don't have to isolate, which is the other 10 days.
Okay.
So that's the piece that I think we're in a better, stronger position on.
All right. Thank you for clarifying, sort of.
Clear as mud, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I do that under 5.
You did that in
Yeah.
under two.
Oh,
Just about.
we're just a minute
All right.
behind.
All right.
All right.
Good.
So with that, we will, I'll take a roll call vote to go
Can
into.
we check to see if there's anybody for
We did.
public
We did.
input?
We did.
It was just next
We'll
days.
take a roll call vote to go into non-public session according to RSA 91-A:311, A through C, where we discuss A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. Brian?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. 500 yes. And that brings us to non-public session. Thank you.